All right. What's going on, Black America? We up in this building. It feel good to be black. I don't know about y'all, but it feel good to be a black man. It feel good to be black. I'm proud to be black. Proud to be a black American. Proud to be a black person. Proud to be part of the diaspora. All of that stuff. But we do got to check some disrespect. We do got to get some straightening going on. Not here to argue, not here to make enemies, but I just want to make sure that our youth and our people understand the truth and know the truth, and we can pass this truth on to the next generation. For a lot of you who may not know why I started this channel, I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna start by telling you why I started this channel and why that goes into our show today. I got no beef with Frank Zanu. We've done videos on Frank Zanu. We understand his mindset and all those things, not trying to change anybody's mindset. But just want to make sure our youth understand that we do have history. We do have culture. We do have a worldview. You know, we're not just some happenstance people that just been floating along for the last 400 years. We have created a lot of things that has nurtured us and allowed us to get to where we are today, to being one of, well, the most influential culture on the face of the earth. So I started this channel, I started this platform in 2012 because I was at a school teaching and a whole bunch of young black girls didn't know who Harriet Tubman was. And I about flipped my lid and lost my mind because none of the young ladies, they literally did not know who Harriet Tubman was. At first I thought it was playing, but they did not know who Harriet Tubman was. And so I vowed that, you know, I'm gonna make sure that our young people, at least through my platform, have access to the truth. So that's why I think this show is important, because we have to make sure that I'm not arguing with Frank. I'm not trying to change Frank's mind. I just want our youth to understand that we do have history, we do have culture, and we do have a truth. And we have our own voice, our own platforms to make sure we get our truth out, to get our story out. So that's one of the reasons why On the Shoulders of Giants exists, the main reason. So we up in here today. Make sure we do what we do, because I love being black. I know y'all love being black. I love my black American heritage. Like I say, I've been able to trace my family lineage back to the 1850s, and I know we can go in further. I can go further than that. The name Pearl in my family, for the ladies, the name Pearl goes back to the 1850s. So, you know, FBA all the way, Black American, however y'all want to classify it. I'm a black person from America, and I do my best to study as much of our history as possible. So I'm gonna do my best to make sure we get our stories out. So one time for my main man, Mr. Dion White. Thank you for being here. Dion first and on the docket, first in the comments. Thank you, Dion, as always, man. Thank you for being up in here. Man, I'm gonna keep doing my thing, and I appreciate you being here. Thank you. Miss Renee, shout out to you. Thank you as always for being up in here. Thank you, Miss Renee. My moderator, Kush, what's going on? All the way from Italy. Peace. How you doing, my brother? Thank you. Greetings, everyone. Mr. Terrell, what's going on? Hey, you a channel member, Terrell. You get them hand claps. You a channel member, my brother. How you doing, my brother? I appreciate you as always for your support. Yeah, all day long we doing what we doing. Say, was Frank a Gen Xer? He may be. I believe Frank is a Gen Xer. I believe so. Nemesis say Frank Zanu is an idiot, but he doesn't represent even a fraction of Africa. But he and idiots like him are too easy to be main character in manufactured beef between FBA and others. Great point. One of the things I'm going to get to. But you know, we're not on this channel. We're not late to the Frank Zanu game. I believe it was a year ago We did a Friday breakdown, and we were reacting or breaking down one of the videos on Frank Zanu's channel. I think that was about a year ago. And then the video that started everything that's going on now with Frank Zanu got a whole bunch of FBA people on his head, and it's his own fault of how he's saying what he's saying. But that video, we did a reaction to that video where he was talking to the young Haitian lady about FBA coaches. So hopefully this is my last time talking about Frank, you know. But I do want to come at a different angle because I ain't got no beef with Frank, but I want to make sure we get some understanding over here. And nobody, and I'm gonna repeat, nobody has the authority or even the room to create a narrative for us, to create culture for us, to create our story, or to tell us what our story is. Nobody can do that. We don't do that to other people, and we're not going to allow you to do that to us. So that's how that's going down. Ricardo Float, what's going on, my brother? Always, always. I love being black. I love being black. Hit that like button, please. Comment, subscribe, share. You hear what my man Kush is saying. Let's get it in. Please hit that like button. Going down. Renee, you already know, 100%. We up in here. Yeah. He says, my only typical issue with these kinds of topics is that we tend to lack the maturity to deal with the subjects. People come in. Yeah, that is. And we seen that last week. People are very emotional. But we have to touch on things. I wish people wasn't as emotional, but you know, we're gonna do our part to make sure we ain't emotional over here. And I do have a better understanding of Frank's worldview as well. So right. So nobody will ever bury what we've done as possible, because nobody has done what we have done for not only this country, but also for humanity. You doggone right. So we got a lot to get to today. So looking at 3 different videos to try to get a better understanding of where Frank Zanu is coming from, and then to give our piece on why we do have history, why we do have culture, why we do have a worldview, why we do have traditions, why we do have taboos. Also, listening to Frank, he has a fixed view of how culture is based off of where he comes from. And we're going to get to that. And Black American culture is unique to all other cultures in the world. We are a unique people with a unique history, a unique story, and unique culture to all other people in the world. And I'm going to get to that because he's going to talk about the different cultures that exist in African countries and how they exist as independent of each other. But that's not exactly how Black American culture is structured. But we're going to get to that. So we're starting with the video that started the firestorm, where Frank Zanu, I believe the title of the video is Haitians Can Never Fix Haiti. So the conversation overall was about Haiti and issues that's going on in Haiti, but the conversation rolled into talking about Black American culture, and that set the internet on fire. And of course, you know, we had our Friday breakdown about that, but we're bringing it back so we can make sure we lay a proper foundation. Another reason why I want to play this video is when we get to the Daily Wrap-Up Crew video, because that interview with the Daily Wrap-Up Crew, it restarted this fire. And so now Frank Zanu has been making his rounds throughout the internet, and you got a whole lot of people who are having him on their platforms, and they're necessarily not getting anywhere. And I know I've had people come in my comments, ask me would I have Frank on the platform, and no disrespect, but I don't think the conversation would get anywhere. He has a fixed worldview. I don't have a fixed worldview, but I'm not into trying to convince anybody to change their worldview. I can only present information, and if you don't take the information to change your worldview, you know, so I don't think it'll be a constructive or productive conversation. But nevertheless, I will give my critique of all the conversation. And the last video we're going to watch is one I just actually saw today. He was on the Karen Hunter show, and it was Frank Zanu, Karen Hunter, and another gentleman, and they were asking him about culture, and the other gentleman who's a historian was breaking down culture, and it just didn't go anywhere. So we're going to show all these things because it helps get a better understanding of where we're coming from. So please hit that like button, comment, subscribe, share. We're gonna have a constructive conversation. We're gonna have some fun. Let's be adult about it. Please don't come in the comments disrespecting people. It's okay to disagree, but disagree like an adult. Do not be emotional. All right. I know what I just said. I'm just hoping for the best. So let's do this. So like I said, the first video is from Frank Zanu's channel when he's having a conversation with the young lady from Haiti that started the firestorm. So please hit that like button. Please hit that like button, comment, subscribe, share. We up in here on the shows of Giant Saturday Live. I am Joseph Ward. Here we go.
Can do anything with it. There is nothing honorable or valuable in asking for freedom. You don't have the foundation on which it can grow.
Well, I mean, I would ask for freedom because I don't want anyone abusing me.
And it's become useless. You become a slave again because you have no foundation. See, African Americans ask for civil rights, but they didn't have a foundation on which it can germinate. See, things you ask, especially.
What do you mean it didn't have a foundation for it?
They have no culture, they have no language, they have no history, they have.
Well, see, one of the problems with how he's saying what he's saying and what he's saying is they were having a conversation about what's going on in Haiti. And he brought up African Americans in this because he was talking about freedom, the concept of, or getting free. And I do agree with what he was saying about the freedom aspect of you want to be free, but there's no foundation to build your freedom upon, because we talk about it all the time that we don't want to put in the work to actually build from the bottom up as far as to be truly free, independent people, truly autonomous. So I do agree with that point that, but I think that's a global thing, not just Black Americans. That's a global thing that Black people in mass don't want to put in the work to have that true foundation for freedom. But now you're trying to say we don't have no culture, no worldview, none of these things. And this is where he got himself in trouble. So let me shut up for a minute.
They have nothing.
Yes, they did. They came here with their culture. They came.
Who is
here.
they?
The different African tribes.
Different African tribes. So whose culture is going to be the main culture?
Right.
So with time, it became Ebonics. Nobody has anything.
Well, and so listen to one of the things he said. Whose culture is going to be the main culture? And that is an African worldview as far as whose culture is going to be the main culture, because over here, as far as Black American culture is the main culture. It is the culture. It is what we are, because he's looking at it like we have many different cultures in Africa. And because we have these different cultures, people don't see eye to eye. People don't see themselves as one, all these things here. That's not the Black American worldview, because we've had a chance to look at history and create a worldview based off of what we've learned and try to correct our mistakes as far as the ones who have studied the things and move forward. So when we talk about a worldview, we talk about a more of a united worldview for Black African people. Are there variations within the culture from state to state? Yes, but it's still presented as one culture, one people, Black Americans moving forward. So yeah, you say he's definitely a Gen Zer. Yeah, a Gen Xer. Yeah, definitely. Says, well, if you lack the basic maturity to have a conversation of any magnitude at this stage of the game, I don't know what to tell him either, Renee. I don't know what to tell him either. Go get some Frosted Flakes or something. I don't know. Hey, yeah. Said, damn, this dude ignorant. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to. I'm gonna get me a drink afterwards. Chat, please hit that like button. Please hit that like button. Yeah, I'm gonna come pick everybody up. We're going out for drinks after this. Y'all be ready. Y'all be outside ready.
They are now still using 2 English names. They are now having only Christianity as their religion. They can remember their history, culture, traditions, customs. So you have no foundation, is what I'm trying to say. African Americans in this country are the only groups. They have no culture. It depends on who you meet, where you meet them.
And remember, he just said we are the only groups who have no culture. I'm writing it down. Only groups who have no culture. depending on who you're talking to. You know, I'm gonna run it back. Let me write this down. All right. You know, I'm gonna run it back so we can hear him say it again. African Americans are the only group who have no culture, depending on who you're talking to. So let me make sure.
They came here with their culture. They came
Who is
here,
they?
the different African tribes.
Different African tribes. So whose culture is going to be the main culture?
Right.
So with time, it become Ebonics. Nobody has anything. They are now still using 2 English names. They are now having only Christianity as their religion. They can remember their history, culture, traditions, customs. So you have no foundation, is what I'm trying to say. African Americans in this country are the only groups. They have no culture. It depends on who you meet, where you meet them.
I dare you to let me build you a completely free e-commerce store, preload.
So we're gonna let that marinate for a minute. Let that marinate. We're the only ones who have no culture, depending on who you talk to. And I wrote that down specifically because when we get to the daily wrap-up crew interview, I played it again. I played it twice. Y'all write that down. And I stopped it because when we get to the daily wrap-up crew interview, he gonna start walking that back. He gonna act like he didn't say that. So, trees like flowers says, our culture doesn't have to look like theirs. I think that's one thing that they don't understand, that culture varies from group to group, from humans to humans, right? Our culture, Black American culture, doesn't have to look like or be set up like cultures in Africa. And to expect Black American culture to look like the cultural groups in Africa would be ignorant, because we had to create something new. And in creating something new, because of our experience, which was new, it's not going to look like anything else that has existed. It's not going to look like anything else in the past. It's not going to look like anything else on the continent, right? So he's speaking on all the colonized countries in the Americas. Yeah, he is. Well, he is, but he's not. Because specifically, he's also talking about, Black American culture specifically. But in a large part, when he does get to the daily wrap-up crew interview, he will be talking about colonized countries throughout the diaspora. But in the Americas, but still, even in the Americas, throughout the Americas, all the people in the Americas had to create new cultures. And that's what they did. Like, you're not going to get a group of people together and they don't have like culture. It's not just because it doesn't look like yours doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I'm not offended by anything the guy says as an ADOS. I think he's going toward codes of conduct within the culture. Yeah, and I'm glad you're not offended, because we shouldn't be offended. We should just be able to have a conversation about it. Definitely disagree, but there are no emotions in it, so I appreciate that. Said there are many people who think like this dude, and what they're saying without saying is that because FBA is not empowered, therefore their living experience is irrelevant. Hey, that's a great perspective. That's a different perspective I never thought about. We didn't ask for freedom. We forced it to come about, or America would have experienced a bloodbath. Yeah. I learned being Black from FBA literature. Africa Today is after the Berlin Conference, which was a brainwashing process. Yeah, it's very different worldviews. We see the world through different lenses, right? He's upset at white supremacy, but blaming African Americans. That's the point. That's the point that was brought up in a conversation, I think, in the Karen Hunter conversation as well. This goes for the Spanish as well. Well, yeah, we were all colonizing, but that's always been one of my original arguments when people are saying that we have no culture. But I was like, well, if we have no culture, all the other groups in the Caribbean and in Central and South America have no culture as well, because a lot of conversations that really threw a lot of gas on these diaspora wars were people specifically saying Black Americans have no culture. And they were saying everybody else in the Caribbean have culture. Everybody else in Latin and Spanish American have culture, even though they got here the same way we got here. So, new member, trees like flowers. I appreciate you for becoming a new member, trees like flowers. Thank you. I appreciate you. Let's say said, has anyone in the chat room noticed how the man talking is very emotional? Yeah. Well, that's pay attention to that. Pay attention to that throughout the conversation. Oh Lord, get this motherfucker. hey. Said, how can any group not have a culture? Our culture is built on our experience, traditions, right? I mean, when we get to the Daily Wrap-Up Crew video, he's going to create his own definition of culture, which we cannot do. We cannot redefine things specifically for our worldview to try to make a point. Problem with being a face of American culture, all bad. Yep. Well, you know, everybody's coming at us. So the way I see it, FBA's had time to develop the culture since emancipation to date. My African culture was interrupted by French specifically, but all over Africa, it was happening until the 1960s. And right. And if nobody's disagreeing that we don't have the original culture we came with, but to say we have no culture at all, that's a problem. FBA Convo, what's going on? Straight out of the D. What up, though? Straight, I'm down here in Florida. What's up, Detroit? In the building. That's what I'm talking about. Says Daniel Russell says, all we did was take the same culture that we had over there because it's in essence and just enhanced. Right. I mean, right. That's how you get Gullah Geechee culture, stuff like that. Maybe we retain the food and language in African dances, but we suffer from amnesia. We all do. But that's one thing I don't disagree with Frank Zanu when he's getting into that. I don't disagree with him on that part. Right. But that is true because all we got is another race culture. We picked up other race culture. It's an amalgamation of things. We know. And it is Stockholm Syndrome. We know Black American culture is an amalgamation of the different cultural expressions that we had access to. But that's same for the people in the Caribbean, same for the people in Central and South America, right? But there's still culture. Matter of fact, other people's cultures are celebrated. Black American culture is celebrated, but let's just play just a little more because this is a little bit more, and then we're gonna get to the Daily Wrap-Up Crew. But I want to set the foundation and listening to what he's saying because this is an essential part of the conversation when we get to the Daily Wrap-Up Crew, because he's saying, once again, African Americans are the only ones who have no culture, and he's saying depending on who you're talking to. Because I made a point in that when we did our Friday breakdown. So,
but currently, there's not an African American culture.
No.
Yes, there is.
What is it? Name 2 value systems in the African American culture.
Value system?
Yes. Name 2 taboos in the African American culture system. Name 2 traditions, by the way, in the African American culture system. Okay, forget it. Name 2 customs in the African American culture. Look, I'm being serious.
No, but I mean, I'm thinking about it.
Yes, there is no value for freedom if you don't understand what it is.
But what we learned about Frank Zanu is not very, he's not versed on a lot of Black American culture. And then the disingenuous part of this conversation is he's having this conversation with a young Haitian woman who, yes, grew up in America, but grew up in a Haitian household. So Haitian culture is what she knows. Haitian history is what she knows. Haitian worldview is what she knows. So it's a very disingenuous conversation to grill this young lady about Black American culture. And of course she doesn't know. But he's making it as if because she doesn't know, then that proves that we have no worldview. We have no worldview. We have no customs. We have no traditions. We have no taboos. We have none of those things. And that's what he's trying to say. And because she can't answer those questions because of her lack of knowledge, being a young Haitian woman who grew up in Haitian culture, she should not have an in-depth knowledge of Black American culture because she didn't grow up in it. So very disingenuous.
The concept of free. You have to have a foundation on which it would balance when you ask for it. Civil rights, they give it to you. You have no culture.
Aqua Video, man.
You've been here, born here. Why would you be surprised if I say African Americans don't have a culture? What, twerking? So anything
but I feel like African American culture has definitely
you say
mainstream.
No, you say the word, the African American culture. What is it? Okay,
fine. Like hip hop. Oh, not hip hop. I mean, I don't want to. Yes, I feel like
you haven't thought about it. It's fine. Don't make things up.
I'm not making it up.
Okay,
I feel
then educate me. You feel. You should know. You were born and raised here.
Yes, but I have a Haitian.
Are you African American?
I'm Haitian American.
That's correct. Do you see why you were being specific with that? Because anybody who encounters you already knows you before. If they know you are Haitian, at least two things come to their mind.
What is that?
If they've been to Haiti, they can look at work ethics and they say, yes, Haitians, I know them. Service industry, they know where they do well. Food, they can say yes. And even language, Creole.
Right.
And they can say, oh, I love Haitians. Because they saw the culture in abstract before they encountered you. So people go over the bridge of your culture, your tradition, your customs, and that helps them to know how to
address it.
Exactly.
Now remember this. Remember what he's saying. He's talking to a young Haitian woman about aspects of Haitian culture. Because when we get to the daily wrap-up crew, he gonna say nobody in the diaspora got culture. He gonna walk a lot of things back. So let me get to some of these comments real quick. It says, Africa and America have nothing to do with one another culturally. Right. We're culturally different. We're definitely culturally different. I appreciate you listening, Panther Jones. I really appreciate you. We're below 50%. Please, we got 97 people up in here. Let's get these likes up, please. Oh, it's free to hit that like button, please. Those questions he asked of the lady, I would not be able to any other black culture. He needs to ask. Right. No, that's what I'm saying. That's what makes the conversation very disingenuous, because he's grilling this young lady about Black American culture, which she's not well versed on. Very disingenuous. And he should understand that, being somebody who is as worldly as he portrays himself to be, because he says his background was in journalism. He's traveled all across the globe, so he should know that. Africa is not the beginning of all civilization. I do not believe in the out of Africa theory. It says African American culture is an adaptation of enslaved Africans to being forcibly assimilated into a rigid American racial caste system. It's beautiful. I'm just saying, ethnogenesis. What's up with the rise of the non-whites? Well, everybody trying to be famous, man. They know that if you go racist, you'll get a following. So because of this, the lines get blurred. These people, right? No, they do. And I do appreciate her, like, doing her best to defend Black American culture also, and not trying to act like she knows it. So I do appreciate that from her. But what I don't appreciate is how he's trying to grill her and make it seem like, well, once again, because you don't know what Black American culture is, we have no culture. You are either African or American. You cannot be both. It says at Chukwu, don't worry about Black American culture, worry about it. Hey, so we already said at the beginning, we're gonna disagree respectfully. We're gonna do respectful disagreements up here, but let me get back into this conversation so we can go ahead and get to the next video.
I see.
No, you will soon know too, in addition to seeing. So I'm saying to you, any people who ask for these things, which are abstract, freedom, for example, independence, for example, and civil right, for example, voting right, for example, you must have a foundation on which these things are going to balance. Because the people there have to uniformly agree with consensus. This is our way of life, the do's and the don'ts.
Janice, you got to remember too, like, even though there are a lot of people, most Black people now, especially now, don't refer to ourselves as African Americans. I know I've never myself called myself an African American. I've always called myself a Black American. There are pockets of people who do refer to African Americans. I know now we're getting a lot of pushback on African American and stuff, but that's why, we're using, that's why they're using like FBA with that instead of saying African American, because the lines get blurred with African Americans. But but let them finish talking. Then I'm gonna get back.
Involved in our culture. Even if you have to create an artificial culture.
Is that why the civil rights movement is considered dead?
It's dead and useless. They got it, but they could not balance it on any foundation. Japanese suffered in this country. 435,000 Japanese were kept in internment camps. Not a single one killed each other for the 3 years they were there during the Second World War.
Mm-hmm.
Being this far apart is tough, but
You understand? Not a single one became a daddy baby or baby daddy while they were in the internment camp, because there was a third object they were focused on: their culture. It has self-determination, customs, traditions. Something guided them to survive. Anything they ask for in this country will be balanced on a foundation for their children.
Well, they say Haitian people have resilience.
Oh, resilience is not culture, please.
No.
Every human being has a resilience in some way or the other.
Resilience to survive, to stay alive.
Correct. That is why you can see the things people ask in this country: the Irish, the Italians, the Jews. It took a while before the Jews got recognized. Exactly. But as soon as they got it, they balanced it on a foundation: culture, customs, traditions. These things conjure what should be your taboos, do's and don'ts. Everybody has to recognize it, to the point, if you violate it, I'll call you out. If we can afford, we kick you out of the community because we don't want you to destroy it. But they all went different roles. There's Malcolm X asking for something different. Martin Luther King asked Stokely Carmichael.
Malcolm X didn't ask for anything. What did he ask for?
Segregation. He was talking to his people.
Oh, to segregate themselves.
Yes. So you can see one group of people who suffered the same experience, yet they don't have a doctrine. And that without a doctrine, which is always balanced on a tradition. So,
well, not true. Malcolm and Martin were working ultimately, especially after both Malcolm and Martin grew in their understanding. Because he's trying to take a look at young Malcolm, young Martin, and talking about the different worldviews. Like, just because people have, well, not different worldviews, different viewpoints. Just because you have a Nation of Islam and the Civil Rights Movement, Black Panthers and all these things going on, doesn't mean ultimately that they're not trying to get to the same thing. They just got different vehicles. But ultimately, when you look at Malcolm and Martin and their understanding as they grew as men, especially when Martin realized he led people into the burning house, and when Malcolm left the Nation of Islam, these gentlemen were behind the scenes getting ready to work together, my brother. So ultimately, they knew who the enemy was, but how they were choosing to fight the enemy was different, right? But yeah, Nemesis, you're right. You funny, man. To my if I be ballad, they would call me a tether. Like, yeah, they tried to call me a tether last week. They came in real emotional last week. But we're about to get away from this one. We're going to get away from this one. I just want to go ahead and set a foundation with this, so we can get to the next video, because that was a whole lot longer with the daily wrap-up crew. But we're hearing what he's saying. Basically, he's saying because there's variation, or there's variances throughout the continent of, let's say, Black America. So somebody in Florida may say jit, and somebody in Philly may say bull. It's just variations, and it doesn't mean that it's not one culture. People don't understand Black American culture. Black Americans, we see ourselves as one. And what we've realized is the rest of the diaspora don't see themselves as one. We've been trained to see Black people as one. We've been trained to see the white man as the enemy and Black people as one. And what we've learned is the world don't work like that, and the rest of the diaspora don't work like that, even though we work like that as Black people in America. We work like that. We do have a one world view. We do have customs, cultures, customs, taboos, traditions, all those different things, right? We have all of that is intact when you talk about Black America. So say, yeah, you're right about this too. When talking about Japanese, they didn't suffer the COINTELPRO. That's why, we have a unique story. That's why we have a unique history. We have a unique culture. So said, stop allowing the descendants of pilgrims to dictate the story of your past. That's why we got to tell our own story. Black American culture is just American culture. It's a unique Black American culture. But you know, we're not here to get back and we're not here to argue with people though. It just because we know we have the information in the history. If his shoes caught fire, his pants wouldn't know it down. Says, what I do know about that one, we make addition to think a certain way. I'm not going to agree on that one. What I do. Which exactly is that point you was talking about, just to make sure. And we in Africa haven't kicked out yet those who right. Nobody's fighting the real enemy. Frank and to give Frank Zander credit, he does talk about that somewhat, but not a lot. So but specifically when he's critiquing the African continent, not necessarily critiquing us. African American, because people have different opinions, that means no culture, then no one has culture. I mean, according to Frank Zander, we're going to see in this new video, according to him, nobody in the diaspora has culture now. He went from saying only Black Americans don't have culture to saying the diaspora don't have culture. And we got to make sure we set a foundation for a definition for what is culture. Because we do got to define culture. We haven't defined culture yet, but we're going to do that. I'm going to say I don't have an African connection, and that's fine. And that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. We're not saying nobody has to have an African connection. But I do think Black people need to know how to get along with each other. We're not saying you have to work, but we do have to get along. As long as we know who the enemy is. Malcolm and Martin were two sides of the same coin. That there you go. He don't. But what I've learned about Frank is I don't think Frank truly knows the full story. He's a hypocrite because I'm from Africa and we don't have the same culture we had right, man, you know. FBA, Indigenous Black Americans or Aboriginal American attitude about Africa, but a lot of others claim Africa, Afro-Latino, Black history. All right. Says at William, how Black Americans have, yeah, we ain't getting into the back and forth. Just be Black and hit the like button. There you go. Hey, Kush, you the moderator. If the back and forth ain't in an adult way, if the back and forth isn't peaceful, do your thing, my brother. Do your thing. It's so-called Africans that do not refer to themselves as Africans. It may be, I don't know. So Frank Zander made an appearance on the Daily Wrap-Up Crew show. And Frank Zander was a guest along with Dave Anderson, the business bully. Now, Dave Anderson made an appearance on Frank Zander's show as well, and they talked a little bit about this. But this conversation was a lot more explosive, so I want to get into this one. But also, I'm going to follow it up with his conversation on the Karen Hunter show. But one of the things I've learned is Frank has a fixed worldview, and he sees the world a specific way. We see the world a specific way, and Frank seems basically someone we can't work with. People who think like Frank are the African people who help stoke the fires of the diaspora wars. I would put Frank in the category of the Africans that we're just not gonna rock with like that. We're not gonna argue with you. We're not gonna try to convince you. We're just not gonna rock with you like that. It's no big deal. At the end of the day, Frank has a specific worldview, and none of us gonna do nothing about it. We don't have to agree with it, but we ain't gonna do nothing about it. We have a specific worldview, and Frank ain't gonna do nothing about it. But I do want to make sure that our people know our history, and we understand that nobody has the right to define our history. So let's look at what is culture. What is culture? What is culture? So culture is defined now. Culture is defined, and we need to make sure that we look at the definition of culture, something that's already defined, because once again, when we get to this Daily Wrap-Up Crew video, Frank is going to have his own definition of what culture is. So the beliefs, customs, arts, etc. of a particular social group, place, or time. Beliefs, customs, arts, right? A particular society has its own characteristics, features of everyday existence. The set of shared attitudes, values, goals, and practices that characterizes an institutional organization. A set of values, conventions, or social practices associated with a particular field, activity, or social or societal characteristic. The combined pattern of human knowledge, belief, and behavior that depends on the transmission of knowledge or succeeding generations, right? So we're talking about the way we walk, the way we talk, the foods we eat, the music we listen to, the way we dance. It would be a language, but we had a language stripped from us, an original language, but we use English. And if we look at Black American history, languages have been created. Gullah Geechee language has been created, or Gullah Geechee dialect and Tutnese. Frank don't know about that. Frank has no idea that Gullah Geechee exists. Because you say Black Americans have no culture. What is Gullah Geechee? And it's just one example, right? Peace, Ernest Smith. Thank you for being in here, right? We're talking about Negro spirituals are part of Black American culture. Macaroni and cheese are part of Black American culture. We're talking about worldviews. Basically, Black American worldview, if we want to talk about it, is we have been enslaved under the system of white supremacy. We believe we have the right, we have the right to be free. We have the right to be autonomous. We have the right to be sovereign people. We've been enslaved by white supremacists, and we want to make sure that we become free. We have a worldview of breaking free from the system of white supremacy and being an autonomous group of people, mapping our own way, dictating our own terms. We do have a worldview. Our worldview is freedom from the system of white supremacy. Traditions, jumping the broom is a tradition. Cooking black eyed peas on New Year's, not wearing white specific days. Taboo is sweeping people's feet. You're not supposed to sweep people's feet. It depends on where you are in the country. When you paint it's a specific type of blue. It's a light type of blue that people will paint across their windows to keep the haint. So haint blue. When you paint your windows haint blue to keep the haints from coming into your house. Or when you go into the country and you see those people with all those bottles hanging in their yard, all those clear bottles with things, the colorful things in the bottles. It's to keep the haints away. It's to keep the evil spirits away. It's to ward away the evil spirits. There's a lot of there's a lot of Black American culture that exists out there. And are there variations of it? Yes, but it's still under one worldview of we are one people, one oppressed group of people, and our goal is to be free of the system of white supremacy. And once we get free of the system of white supremacy, our worldview could evolve, it could change. But to say we have no culture is crazy. If we have no culture, why are people in Japan breakdancing with a Wu-Tang shirt on? If we have no culture, like look at the people in the UK. You got Black people in the UK who are acting like unfortunately, the worst parts of Black American culture have been romanticized and put out to the masses. So that has definitely spread all over that. So yeah. Hey, Panther Jones. Hey, Kush, go ahead and give Panther Jones the door, because I see too many people going in on Panther Jones. So Kush, go ahead and give Panther Jones the door, man. If you're gonna act like that, like look, we gotta make sure if we ain't keeping it right up in here, if we ain't keeping it respectful up in here, we gotta go. You gotta go. I appreciate everybody in here, but if you ain't gonna be respectful, Kush, go ahead and do your thing, my brother. Got to be respectful. We got to disagree respectfully. Don't be trolling. Do your thing, Kush. So, yeah, we have one of the strongest coaches on earth. We have the coach. We have a lot of the most influential coach on earth. This culture question comes up often with other non-Black American blacks. I think those folks hosting should have the definition handy, have a meaningful discussion, ground rules, right? But I just gave you my definition of coaching, what coach is. Coach is more than hip hop and fashion. It is. Coach is when you go to Big Mama house, especially like when I was growing up, you go to your grandmother's house and there's a hierarchy, right? Like grandmother sits you down. She like that, what's that tin can that the cookies come in? And you know, you got the sewing kit in that. Like that's Black American culture. Like you get that big old can of them, I forgot the name of them cookies, but it ain't no cookies in that. It's a sewing kit in that. Only Black Americans understand that. Only Black Americans understand like it's a lot of stuff that goes into Black American culture, right? Jumping the broom. Jumping the broom is a custom. Something that was a taboo, something that was a taboo, but it's not passed down anymore, is cussing at your elders. Like cussing, matter of fact, cursing in front of your elders. We used to help older people across the street. Right? We used to help the old people across the street. It used to be a hierarchy. It used to be somewhat of a code of conduct, but that was extinguished when a lot of strong Black men were taken out of the picture. Codes of conduct, rites of passage. We can even look at Kwanzaa. If people want to count Kwanzaa, we talking about values and worldviews, looking at the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. It's something that was created, you know. So he said, to be fair, the broom thing occurred in Brazil and Portugal. Gotcha. I get you. I give you that. We'll take that back. We give you that. But you know, just to act like we don't have culture is crazy. Music, sports, and food are not the most essential parts of culture. We have the values that the whole group lives by. Nowadays hip hop is nothing to be proud of, but it's still a Black American cultural expression. And so we can look at jazz, we can look at all those things. The arts are a part of Black American culture. The paintings, like all of the artists, not just the musical artists, but the actual painters, the writers. Look at all the literature that have come out. Looking at Langston Hughes, looking at my man, great debaters. I can't think of his name, but he was the teacher for the great debaters. It's the Melvin Tosin. All of the literature that have come out, right? The way Black people interact with each other, the way we dress have evolved. Like all of those things go into culture. That's why I read the definition. All those things go into culture and cultural expressions. And of course, it's going to be different from region to region. It's going to have different expressions in it. But just to say we have nothing, everybody has it. So, all right. So let's get into. This may sound controversial, but I would ultimately argue that we as Black people globally have elements of culture, but until we get everything together, we don't have a true global culture. We don't have a true global culture. We have our own little pockets of cultural expressions that are, especially us. I don't disagree. We have an amalgamated culture that we had to recreate because the original things were taken from us. So a true central one. Now we don't have that, but we do have our recreation of culture that we have for ourselves in America. So I'm with you. I'm with you. So the problem is the culture before and after Reconstruction and what was retained. Yeah, it has changed. The culture has changed. Phil Miner, the culture has changed over the years, and I think people forget about what it was. Like, you were looking at it now, and we were looking at it just in the space right now. We're not looking at the fullness of how the culture was created and changed over time and evolved over time, or devolved over time. Nobody's disagreeing. We say it on this channel all the time. The culture has devolved. We're not proud of the cultural expressions nowadays, but we still do have a culture. So, Black American culture is a new nation culture. Black Americans are not simply West American, simply West African, simply indigenous, simply European. We are a new people formed through, it's an amalgamation of different cultures. Says the problem is the culture before, right after, then retained. Renee says, I definitely agree with that. Luke, man, you saying how come to what exactly? Says speaking up for ourselves, which is sometimes misunderstood as anger or complaining. Gotcha. Says culture is your language, customs, religion, cuisine, history, all that. We are a new people formed through forced convergences that produces new kinship systems, music structures, new human, new ethic. Right. Says, are Africans losing their indigenous culture? Are Africans losing their indigenous culture? I'm not sure. I am not sure. There's no place to be speaking about us. He just stepped out. Hey, man. Hey, be respectful. Be respectful. You might not agree with the brother, but be respectful, though. Be respectful. There are only 3 genotypes in existence today: melanin fulls, melanin filled, melanin less. Said that's a big fact. All right. Do we value education like the Indians? Do we have rites of passage and rituals when children reach a certain age? How do we hold the traitors amongst us accountable? Well, the yes and no. Those things were not passed down. The value of education was not passed down. Our Black American culture has devolved. We would not argue against that. It has devolved. Education used to be taken serious. You got to remember, we're the same people who we was willing to die to learn how to read and write. So education was taken serious. Do we have rites of passages and rituals that reach children at a certain age? Not anymore. Things were not passed down. Traditions, cultures, cultural traditions, traits, principles, those things were not passed down, especially to these younger generations. We hold nobody accountable because we've devolved. Is the culture perfect? Is it good? Is it intact? No, but to say we have nothing at all, it's not at a good state. But I will also go out and say that that's across the diaspora. And that's one thing I don't disagree with Frank about, is Black culture across the diaspora is at a fallen state. So he says, well, what part of this culture deals with how Black people ought to treat and respect each other? The so-called culture holds. Nobody's disagreeing with that. Nobody's disagreeing with that. It doesn't hold people accountable. So, and in large it doesn't. In pockets, there are pockets of people that do, but and in large it doesn't. We are a devolved people. We got a lot to work on. We do have a lot to work on. It's not good. I feel like if you feel like you're a Black African American or Indian, be that, but arguing is not. Yep. And HBCUs, Black butterflies, you saying that's part of Black American culture? Says that individual is not our brother. He's an enemy, no different than the Saltines. He should. Hey, well, I've come to the conclusion that Frank Zanu, like I said earlier, Frank Zanu wouldn't be somebody that we would maybe build with. His worldview is different from our worldview, and it's okay. And it's okay. Please hit that like button if you have not. 4% of enslaved people were dropped off in Barbados, and the Caribbean Indians were enslaved within those Americans of Europe before 1442. There you go. You learn something new every day. I too used to think we didn't have a culture. I appreciate what you do, brother. I mean, and I've heard. I appreciate you, Terrell. I appreciate you. I've heard that before, that we didn't have a culture, but just looking around at how we exist and things that we do, like the specificity in our foods, the specificity in our speaking patterns, how we talk, how we use the English language, you know, the way we walk, all those things, the way we at least used to interact with our parents, grandparents. A lot of things were lost. We're not gonna sit here and act like Black American culture don't have no problem. A lot of things were lost. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the second video. Frank Zanu on the Daily Wrap-Up crew. So, and like I say, it's a lot of things being walked back. So, all right, please hit that like button. Please hit that like button. Let's go.
Listen, today's conversation is long overdue. Intellectual class with two brilliant minds that are different perspectives about the Black agenda. On one side, we got Dave Anderson. On the other side, we got Frank Zanu.
Yes.
Let me start here with Dave. Can you explain to the audience who you are and why you are qualified to have this conversation?
I feel like my qualifications are: I'm a foundational Black American, 22-time best-selling author, radio broadcast professional, husband, father, and liver of the Black experience for the past 5 decades. I don't think I need a doctorate, but I got a couple degrees.
Okay.
It's all right. Aside from that, I've been living, baby.
Okay.
Let's go.
And Frank, can you let the audience know who you are and why you are qualified to have this conversation?
My name is Frank Zanu, of course, from Benin Republic, West Africa. I have lived in about 9 African countries. I was trained to be a journalist, so I've been a reporter for the Washington Times for 13 years. That allowed me to live in Asia, Europe, Africa. And now, of course, I live in the United States of America. So I have a link. I seems to be the only bridge who can compare what I know from where I came from and then seeing people that we're taking from that place now. So I can look at the two and be able to spell out the similarities and what the root cause of some of the problems are.
The first topic I want to get into is, how do you define culture? And under your definition, do Black Americans have a unique culture? Let me start here with Frank.
Well, I'm glad you used the word unique culture. So yes, I'm sure you all saw the episode, that got everybody on my case, except this gentleman who was the only one brave enough to say, well, look, before I cut him into pieces, let me give him a chance to come into the studio and explain, to the audience.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. People say, oh, you're from Benin. And I'll say, yes. And they say, what's Benin culture like? And then I freeze. Because there's nothing like a Benin culture. Or if you're from Ghana, or if you're from Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Liberia, there is no such thing. But if you say, oh, you are Yoruba, I said, yes. What is Yoruba culture like? Then he or she is able to start to talk about it. So there are similarities which I'm going to really explain, and you can see it. So I'm first going to ask, he's been on my show. He's seen my thing. I do not put together that show, which I fund from my own pocket because I just want to say things to make people angry. No, it's because I really care. And sometimes I get frustrated about what I have seen from the continent where I come from and what I see here about my great-great-great-grandfathers, uncles, sisters who were taken away. So African Americans would say, well, you're not one uncle. Yes, I know, but I'm walking past my cousins, my nieces every day. So what is in my head is what is in their head. And what I'm explaining is something that they must listen to. When I say there is no such thing as African American culture, they're like, what do you mean? But culture for me is not dance, food, clothing. Those are not cultures. Culture is a worldview. The worldview is what drives people. Their relationship to wealth, to money, to community, to marriage, to family. It's the worldview they have. That's the foundation of a culture. And number two, there is no possibility for you to have a culture without having a language. So if you read most of the books written by brilliant African Americans, the first thing you see, the headline is, the traumatic thing about slavery is not merely changing your environment. The traumatic thing about slavery is not merely asking you to work long hours. The Russians had hard labor camps in Siberia. Many countries, Japanese had it, where people work and they die. The traumatic thing about slavery is one thing only, which everyone has written about. They took our language away. They took our culture away. They took our history and religion away. That is a traumatic thing about being a slave. Now, if they took those things away, how and when were they recovered? So I met a gentleman, I was attending a conference in Singapore, and I met this gentleman who was a Korean sociologist. So we started talking during coffee, and I said, oh, I lived in Korea for 2 years when I was reporting. And he said, oh, wow. And then we started talking. I don't remember how the conversation came about when he asked me. He said, so your country was colonized? I said, yes, and my country, his country, Korea, was colonized by the Japanese for 49 years. And he said, what did you guys, meaning referring to people in Benin, what did you lose as a result of colonization? And I froze and I said, whoa, nobody has ever asked me that question. So I said, Prof, you tell me, and that will give me some idea. And he said, no, we're Koreans, we're colonized by the Japanese. So when they left, all we lost was time. We just went back being Koreans. And from that day, I could tell clearly, what did we lose as a result of colonization in Africa? What did you lose as a result of slavery? If you don't fix that which you lost, you're not going to make any way forward. So in Africa, the countries that exist today were never there. They force a group of tribes that have their own distinct cultures to become a country. So they've lost their distinct cultures, trying to have a culture as a collective, which is never going to happen. So for me, first and foremost, when I talk about culture, I'm talking about a worldview, meaning the collective have to have one reason they are here on earth. And that thing is what drives them. It's what makes them wage wars, conquer people, anything. You ask anybody, in 1884, it was the Irish journalist who finally found a word to describe the English man, which he called the manifest destiny. That exceptionalism of the Englishmen, now you call them Americans. The American exceptionalism is the American culture, that they believe that God put them on this earth to colonize and civilize others. And that's what drives them to go out there and try to give freedom and fight for freedom and do all the things they do. Now, good or bad, I'm not giving any value. You ask the Japanese, he will tell you their worldview. So their dance and food, and no, those are not. I came from a place where, as a young boy, I was given a worldview, and it guided me everywhere I went. So when you meet me outside my culture, you can tell from my behavior, he must come from a culture that believes in XYZ. So a culture becomes more pronounced when you are outside the group. As an individual, outside your group, people must be able to tell.
Okay. Dave, what is your rebuttal?
So, okay. So let's start with his definition of culture is something that he created based off of his experience, his definition of culture. His definition of culture is lacking certain things that goes with the classical definition of culture, like arts, like music, arts, things like that goes into it. That's not all of what culture is, but those are part of culture because we're talking about cultural expressions, right? We're talking about the experience, the shared experiences, shared behaviors, the shared customs that a group of people will have, whether your original culture was stripped from you or not. So what I learned from watching Frank Zano talk a little more is one of the things that he's trying to say is Black American culture is, like we were saying earlier, it's an amalgamated culture. It's our original culture was taken from us, and then we have recreated something new. So when he gets to saying, like one example he gave is, if you go to Nigeria and you ask what is Nigerian culture, they won't give you specific Nigerian culture. But if you ask the different groups of people. And I don't know the different groups of people in Nigeria like that, so I'm not going to act like I do. But if you ask the different groups of people about their specific culture, they could tell you about that. My pushback to him is that, but that's the difference between culture in Nigeria and culture in Black America. Once again, now, because nobody's disagreeing that the original culture was stripped away. Nobody's disagreeing that we had to piece things back together. Nobody's disagreeing about the impact of colonization. We don't disagree with none of that. But when you put people together for 400 to 500 years, we will have shared experiences. We will have a shared worldview. We will have a shared way of communicating with each other. Even if the language we speak isn't a language that we created ourselves, it is still the language that we use, and then we'll take that language and modify it. Hence how you get African American English or African American vernacular. Once again, you get the Tutnese, you get the Gullah Geechee languages, you get all the variations of English that we would use as Black Americans. All those things would go into the culture being shaped over time. And he was like, well, when did the culture get recreated? Well, over time. It's something that is like a gumbo. You got to slow cook it over time. Took all these different elements from all these different African people, but not just African people, but from the Europeans, from the indigenous Americans that were around, and all these things came together to create African American or Black American culture, rather, that we have, which has evolved over time and degenerated, but it's still here. It's still something that we created, same as any other group within the diaspora who were products of colonization. So please hit that like button, y'all. Please hit that like button. We're above 50% on the likes. I appreciate you, Kush. I appreciate you. Please get that likes up, get the likes up. But you know, I don't disagree fully with what Frank is saying. That's one of the things that I've been saying the whole time. But when it comes down to just saying that we don't have a worldview, once again, we do have a worldview. Most Black Americans may not know what the worldview is because we've been behind enemy lines for 400 years. And then I do have a problem with comparing our experience in Black America, our 400 to 500 year experience in Black America, to the experience of the Asians. I forgot the specific group that he said just off the top of my head. I think Taiwan or something, but the group, the different Asian countries who may have experienced colonization for 40 years, yeah, but their total, who they were was not stripped totally from them in those 40 years. And there was not consistent onslaughts and consistent warring against those people for 400 years. Also, those people are not living behind enemy lines. They don't have the same experience. We don't have the same experience as them. You can't compare them to us. It's different experiences. Their little 40-year blip has nothing to do with us. It don't compare to what we experienced. Their little 40-year blip. That we were literally transported from the original homeland to somewhere else, put behind enemy lines, and then had to recreate culture from there. Experiencing constant barrage of attacks by your enemy, looking to destroy any and everything you create, looking to suppress any and everything you create. Their experiences are not our experiences. We have a unique culture, yes. And nobody's denying that there are aspects of white American culture and Black American culture. Nobody's denying that. It's an amalgamation of the different cultural people that we experience. Nobody's denying that white American culture has an effect on Black American culture. We know that. But that doesn't mean we don't have a culture. Right? Or am I wrong? Y'all let me know. Because white American culture has an influence on Black American culture, does that mean Black America don't have a culture? Because nobody disagreed with Frank Zanu in saying that our culture is an amalgamation of different things. Nobody disagreed with that. people are disagreeing with him saying we don't have a culture at all. Said a little something to keep the conversation going. Negrino 4470, I appreciate you and your contribution.
All this money, homie. I got all this money, homie.
I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Like I say, I mean, it's pieces of the argument. I agree with pieces of the argument. I disagree with. I don't know, because that's been the main thing. Like, I've been listening to him for the whole time. It's like he's arguing one thing and everybody else is arguing another thing, and I think that's one of the things that's getting lost in the translation. He's trying to say one thing. He said, but he's asking the question, what are our solutions? You might not like the delivery, but I guess it. But he hasn't offered a solution. What is his solutions? He hasn't offered one solution. He's the critic. What is the solutions? What is the solution for the diaspora? He's the critic. We didn't get online and go out and try to say, Black Americans, we are the only culture in the world that matters. He got online and said Black Americans don't have the culture. Now he's asking us for the solutions. No, you tell us what's the solution, because you told us we don't have a culture, and he's the critic. So what solutions do he have? Because even in this interview, the good thing about this, Dave Anderson, the guy that he's interviewing, he got a whole book of solutions. He got a whole book that he's written to come to the solution. So let's let Dave Anderson talk, though. But and I get it. I get Phil mine. I hear what he's saying, but my thing is, you can't ask for us to have solutions when you are the critic. You're supposed to give us the solutions because you're the critic. And we do have solutions on our end. The thing is to talk to Black people first before you jump out there and start running your mouth.
To that.
It's not so much a rebuttal, it's a difference in philosophy, right? It is, and I think we got to thank Frank for even coming here, because I know for some people this would be very adversarial. Frank and I, we talk all the time. We're very, very good folk. And there's a couple of things that I got to push back on simply because they were not available to us. See, when Frank was born, he inherited a culture. We had to make one with what we had. Some of us, if I were to swab any one of you, you would find some Nigerian, you would find some Ghanaian. Like, we had to hodgepodge, not to mention out of all of the places that Black people were forced into when we were slaves, 3% came to what we now consider the United States of America. And then we were bred over time. We were buck broken over time. They would take our women and grape them out of respect for your channel. You know what I'm saying? Drop the G. And then on top of that, they had a split breast system. And the split breast system means that one breast would feed the white children of the slave master, and the other one would feed the Black children that were going to be born.
Let me stop real quick. Circuit City, I'm acknowledging your comment. Look, over here I can't speak for other channels. I can't speak for other Black people, but I know over here on the Shoulders of Giants, we don't do the diaspora wars. We rock with Black people that rock with Black people. We rock with Black people that's about Black people, coming together and building and being harmonious and all those things there. So yeah, it's a sad thing that we do have people throughout the diaspora that don't represent well, but over here we understand we don't judge the group by the actions of the individual. So that's how we get down over here.
Off and sold. We also have a situation where we had to face things that no other Black person on the continent had to face. Taking our children and feeding them to alligators, lynching, Jim Crow, all of those things. And when you look at it, whether we choose to acknowledge it or not, the pulse of America runs through foundational Black Americans. Who was the first person to die in the Revolutionary War? Crispus Attucks, Black man, foundational Black American, right? Harriet Tubman made the Underground Railroad and stopped it in Philadelphia. There are all of these things that have happened that make it who we are. Now, as a person who was the first Black youth president of an organization called the National Conference of Christians and Jews, to Frank's point, I do agree, you don't really see your culture until you're out of it. So I'm a raisin and buttermilk in a conversation where there's a bunch of white Christians and a bunch of Jewish people, and they're like, hey, we do this. I'm like, no, Black people don't do that. You know what I'm saying? From the way we walk, the way we talk, the way we eat, the way we move. Not to mention, you can't go anywhere on this earth without seeing our influence. The problem is, unlike any other Black culture on the face of the planet, we have been colonized and monetized for profit by everyone, including the Koreans. K-pop ain't nothing but R&B. Let's call it what it is. And it's R&B under duress, because if you look at what happened with Megan Thee Stallion when she was dealing with those K-pop girls, she was like, oh, it's serious up in here. Because if they miss a step, they get what Joe Jackson gave Mike and them, but worse. There are all of these things that take place that no one wants to talk about. So no, we don't have a language because we weren't allowed to speak our language under penalty of death. When you talk about you can't come to the cookout and things of that nature, people forget. Picnic is...
You say Black Americans practice the same exact culture of the white people who enslaved them. It's not the same exact culture. Do they have has it been influence for white culture? Yeah, but we don't practice the same exact culture. We don't. And if so, give me examples. Give me examples of us practicing the same exact culture. Are we like us, like other Black people across the diaspora? Are we all insane as a result of colonization? Yeah. Well, what do you mean by we practice the same exact culture? What do you mean by that? Give me an example of us practicing the same exact culture as the people who enslaved us. Because they have influenced us, but what do you mean by the same exact culture? Because we do have cultural differences. I don't know, we do have cultural differences.
It is an abbreviated slang term, which means you get to pick to lynch. Postcards came from pictures that they used to take the back of and mail for people who couldn't see the lynching that they had. All of these things we survived. And the funny thing is, everyone's coming over here and benefiting from the fact that we put out the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. All of those things that started as the Black liberation movement, but then got shoehorned into civil rights because everybody wants to come off of our pain. It's still a part of who we are. American culture is Black culture. The problem is, not only did we have to create it, but everybody else got to monetize it. We don't own major forms of media. So the message that goes out to the world about foundational Black Americans is very lopsided. It's very negative. Even Frank said to Nancy, he said, well, what is your culture? Twerking? Negating the fact that twerking started in Africa. Mating rituals, things of that nature, tying of the hip, stop me when I go wrong. All of these things get put out as if that's who we are. And it's a very limited, very narrow-minded, very sore and very disingenuous snapshot of who we are, because we get put into killers, baby mamas, this and that and the other. And then when you look at how the media is weaponized, right? They'll take people throughout the diaspora and then put them on platforms and then bring them here. I'll give you an example. There's a show on CBS called Bob Hart's Abishola. And she said things that were much more incendiary than what Frank said. You know, oh, what is it? Gangbangers and baby mamas?
Crazy.
No. That energy is designed to keep us a certain way. And then when you talk about how the entertainment is weaponized, because that's the message, that's our largest export. It always has been. Our talent and our ability to entertain, but not capitalize on said entertainment. You can't point to one major Black-owned record company. You can't point to one major Black-owned media outlet. You can't point to one major media or technological distribution center that is controlled, owned, and managed by foundational Black Americans. And so the message of foundational Black Americans that gets out is not our message. And I completely reject that. If that's what you think the culture is, I am here to tell you that ain't my culture. It ain't never been my culture. It ain't been the culture of most of my brethren. Do we have some knuckleheads? Absolutely. Of course we do. But do we also have things like COINTELPRO we've still had to overcome? Do we have things like the 94 Biden-Clinton crime bill that we've had to overcome? And throughout history, I have yet to see anybody from any of those 54 countries.
Chuka, what's the Black American worldview? Yep, we speak English. We were brought over to America and we speak English. Yep. We Christians, Muslims, Jews, all that stuff, like everybody else in the world. We play sports specific to over here. Yep, we do. Yep. Holidays. Yeah, we do celebrate white holidays. Cuisines, we have our own cuisines. What is our worldview? Nobody's arguing that white and a white influence. We're behind enemy lines. We colonize people. But what is our worldview? And to say we have no culture, and where you from, and what's your culture, and what's your worldview, and what is the Black American worldview? Tell me what the white American worldview is, and tell me what the Black American worldview. Because I can guarantee you we have a different worldview. I can guarantee you that. But once again, like, nobody's arguing what influenced Black American culture, but to say that we have nothing specific to us at all is egregious. All people, every group of people in the world have things specific to them, and every people in the world, well, most people in the world have their culture has been influenced by others. It's too many people who have encountered other cultures to not be influenced by other cultures. And when you're talking about a group of people who grew up behind enemy lines, of course our culture is going to be influenced by the people who enslaved us. But that doesn't mean that we don't create anything specific for ourselves within that, though. You know what I'm saying? But even to that, though, I just thought about it. Even to that, there are countries in Africa who speak the English language, who praise the English man's gods, the white man's gods, who play the white man's sports, who celebrate the white man's holidays, who eat the white man's foods. Do they not have culture as well? It's African countries that do that now. African cultures that do that now. Do they not have culture? Just because you're colonized and just because your culture may not be totally indigenous of you, just because your culture has been influenced by others. So, all Black people in the world see themselves through the lens of white people. All Black people. You need to read France Fanon, my brother. All Black people. Black people on the continent don't see themselves through the eyes of themselves. They see themselves through the eyes of white men too. Why do you think there hasn't been a mass uprising of Black people against white supremacists on the continent? All Black people throughout the diaspora see themselves through the eyes of white people. All of them. We've all been colonized. There's not a group of African people on this continent who don't see themselves through white people's eyes. Even you and your people.
Countries come back for their brothers that they say that they love so much. I don't remember the warships coming to get us. I don't. But what I do see is, we're really good at educating. We take the opportunities and we're able to, go and take these American opportunities that you guys squander. Yeah, because you get an immigrant experience. You do not get the foundational Black American experience. You get the same immigrant talk that the Russians get, and the Russians got a lot of nerve because if it wasn't for Alexander Pushkin, they'd still be speaking French. Alexander Pushkin created the Russian language. He was a Black man. So when you talk about where we are and where we've been, you also have to talk about the mind screw, right, out of respect for your channel, that we have been put under. So no, we don't have an official language because we weren't allowed to have one, but still, if you look at AAVE, it's everywhere, and when it comes out of our mouth, it goes from the hood to the boardrooms to a billboard on Broadway or in Times Square. So we have culture, we have influence, and no, I'm not just talking about taking what's the word I'm looking for? Weeds and turning them into collard greens, or taking innards and turning them into chitterlings. I'm talking about the fact that we have persevered and we are the most copied individuals on the planet. So much so, if I'm wrong, please explain Akon to me. Please explain Burna Boy to me. They all do a variation of who we are. And I'm not just talking about music. I'm talking about the walk. I'm talking about the talk. I'm talking about the hairstyles. I'm talking about the innovation. Everything we do. We took a construction worker's boot and made it the hottest item for the past 40 years because everybody finds a way to profit off of what we create and then demonize us for creating it and then label us criminals, uneducated, unwilling. We don't care, but they don't talk about all the systemic things that have been set up and profited by people who want to keep us in a certain box. That doesn't mean we can't escape that box. But
so I see Quincy Simpson's comment says, of course he can't define FBA as the real thing. It's a way to classify lineage. It's a way to classify a group of people. Nobody had a problem when we called ourselves African Americans. Nobody had a problem when we were called black. Nobody had a problem when we were called colored. Nobody had a problem when we were called Negroes. Nobody had a problem when we were called niggas, all those things. But when we define ourselves in a better way for ourselves, especially for legal purposes, to get reparations as foundational Black American, everybody have a problem with it. Now, do you have a problem with the people who call themselves FBA, or do you have a problem with the concept of, all right, this is a group of people who are going to use this label to help define them through their lineage? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just what I'm thinking about with it, you know, not trying to get to no back and forth. I'm just saying, yeah, I mean, it's a classification of a lineage of people. Right. But once again, like, we didn't have a lot of people coming at us when we was African Americans and we was colored. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, I'm wondering why the term FBA gets a lot of people angry. Now, we know that there are certain people within certain groups that are assholes. In every group, but once again, like somebody say, we concentrate on the negatives. Like, it's a way to define a lineage. But is it because I saw somebody says it separates what it said. Where is that comment? The FBA separates the wheat from the chaff. How does it separate? Because isn't it okay for a group of people to define themselves for themselves? Is that not okay? Like, nobody has a problem with Jamaicans calling themselves Jamaicans. Nobody have a problem with Haitians calling themselves Haitians. Nobody have a problem with Cubans calling themselves Cubans. Nobody have a problem with Dominicans calling themselves Dominicans. Nobody have a problem with the Garifuna calling themselves Garifuna, right? Why is it a problem to say foundational Black American when it's a problem to say foundational Black American, but it's not a problem to say Jamaican? To say foundational Black American doesn't mean I'm absent of the diaspora or I hate other Black people. It just means I'm a Black person from America. My lineage goes back to American slavery. I mean, how is that separating people? I don't get it. And the delineation is coming when we're talking about, for legal terms, to get reparations for Black people who are descendants of slaves. You know what I'm saying? Hey, and we're gonna agree to disagree that FBA is a hate group. I believe FBA is not a group. There are people who do call themselves FBA that I vehemently disagree with, but to say it's a whole hate group, because that's the same thing as Black people saying, well, because of Frank Zanu, then all people from Benin are a hate group. You know, you can't broad brush. You know what I'm saying? It's not a hate group. It's a lineage. You might not agree with certain people who are talking and their talking points, but you know what I'm saying? But hey.
Act like we were not put under duress for what we had to put together as a culture when everybody else got to inherit it. And that includes Haitians, Jamaicans, everybody else got to be left alone so that they could develop. We didn't have that. And to this day, I have yet to meet one
African, one Jamaican, one Caribbean, one black person anywhere who comes into this country and has automatically ingrained in them before they start going, my country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing, that they're afraid when the red and blue lights come on behind them when they're pulled over. And I get it, and I'm the son, brother, and nephew of cops. That's why I say, yes, we have a culture, but of course we don't have a language. But let's not be disingenuous and act like it doesn't matter, because it does. Because as foundational Black American goes, so goes everybody else in society.
Never sue the other driver after a car accident. There's a better way to get paid a way bigger check without having to go to.
So Frank, let me ask you a question. If slavery erased our Black Americans' culture, what do you call what we built after slavery? What do you call that?
Well, you have to give me an example of what you mean by what we build. What are you referring to?
You tied culture back to African and something that you inherit, but you said that got erased during slavery.
Well, before he get into that, Chukwu, you say your problem is FBA think they have a monopoly on being Black and monopoly on being Black American citizens. I'm an American citizen too, and Chukwu, I think I think you are missing a very important point. About 10 years ago, Black people in America, 10 years ago and even further Black, Black people in America were referring to everybody, all Black people in the world as Black. Black people in America, I'm gonna make myself big. Black people in America were referring to everybody who are of the diaspora as Black. But Black Americans stopped doing that when other people start saying, I'm not Black, I'm not Black, I'm not Black. That's why you see it all in the media. That's why you hear people keep saying it. And it's documented. There's so many people who were saying, I'm not Black, I'm not Black, I'm not Black, I'm not Black. So Black Americans finally start saying, okay, well, y'all not Black. We're not gonna say y'all Black. We don't think we have a monopoly on Black. We have a worldview that we're all together. But what we are saying is, if you don't want to be Black, cool. We're not gonna force you to be Black. We're not gonna do that. You know what I'm saying? But there was a long history of people saying, I'm not Black, I'm not Black, I'm not Black. And so that's how we get to this point. But we don't have a monopoly on trying to be Black, and we don't think we're the only Black people in the world, he says. FBA think that, and I appreciate the super chat. I appreciate the super chat on that.
Look at all this money, homie. I got all this money, homie.
But like I said, we don't think we have a monopoly on being Black. We invited everybody to be Black, but everybody kept saying that they not Black. So we like, all right, y'all not Black then. That's what happened. He said, oh no, did they have their high heel moccasins on? I don't know. Naga Kushite TGZ. I don't know what you talking about. He said, Renee, I feel you. White supremacy have a monopoly on white. We keep overlooking white supremacy, you know what I'm saying? But that's the whole gist of it. Like, we fighting again. So but that's why you're supposed to have constructive conversations instead of emotional conversations, because emotional conversations lead to fight. But Chukwu, I hear what you're saying, but we don't think we have a monopoly on being Black. As a matter of fact, we invited everybody to be Black, but everybody was like, they not Black. And so everybody who said that they not Black, we like, all right.
But we built something, clearly Black Americans have built throughout slavery and the culture that we have currently.
What I'm asking is, give me an example so I'll be able to respond to that particular thing.
Well, like things like gospel is something that we built after slavery.
Songs and music,
the foods that we eat, that we consume.
Sure, songs and music exist in every society.
Is that not a part of culture?
No.
Yes,
let me come to that. And first, let me make a little.
And see, that's the thing to him. He's recreating the definition of culture to fit his argument and his worldview, and you can't recreate definitions to fit that. We're not saying that those are the foundations of culture. Music, art, and food and stuff like that's not the foundation of culture, but those are aspects of culture. But you're talking about our taboos. Don't disrespect elders. Help elders across the street. Don't mess with family members. Matter of fact, it depends on where you grew up in the country. Be in the house by sundown. You know, certain people, it varies from state to state, but it's still certain things that, or specifics that are there are certain specifics to Black American culture, what I'm trying to say, that are universal throughout. So you give certain looks, Black people understand certain looks. You get that certain look in the certain specific setting. I can go to Wisconsin. I can meet a Black person in Wisconsin, and me and that Black person will see a specific event happening, and we can communicate non-verbally because of the cultural cues and the cultural traits and the cultural oneness. Like Black American culture is not some chopped up culture, or it's not a variation of pockets of things. It's one culture, just different ways of expressing that culture depending on where you are. But you know,
response to David's assertion that we were not allowed. So in Benin or Ghana or Nigeria, you pick any of the 54 countries in Africa, right? If you had gone into a Yoruba tribe, which is now part of Nigeria, they would speak Yoruba. Now, when we were put together forcefully as countries, today, my nieces and nephews can't even speak my language properly. And the French and English, they can't even speak it properly. Because in one classroom, you have 36 kids who come from different tribes in that classroom. So they can only use English or French or Spanish or Portuguese to teach this myriad of tribes now who don't speak their language anymore. African Americans were not prevented from speaking their language. When the ship arrived, it was one from this.
So Chukwu, if you're a Nigerian, I'm not getting where you're coming from. When did Black Americans tell Nigerians that they weren't Black? When? Matter of fact, before people start saying me no Black, when did Black Americans tell anybody that they wasn't Black? But when did Black Americans specifically tell Nigerians that they weren't Black? I mean, because, and if so, point them out. But does that mean that because if individuals do you take that out on all Black Americans? Because there's some Nigerians who've done some foul stuff, and we don't take it out on all. Well, the smart ones don't take it out on all Nigerians. I'm just saying, like, are you looking at actions from individuals and broad brushing the whole? But when did Black Americans start telling Nigerians that they weren't Black? I don't know when Black Americans told people that they weren't Black until other groups said that they weren't Black. I don't know.
That tribe. So automatically you can speak to each other. And when you don't speak your language for a while, like I've been outside Africa now going 40 years. If I meet any of my uncles and I start to try to speak my language, I'm interfered by English constantly, and I can't finish it. I can't make a coherent sentence in my own language because
what they got to do with that?
School, you could not use that language because you are now a bucket of different languages. The same thing happened here. You were brought as a shipload of different languages. That is why Creole and Patois were created.
Right.
So you use the only word you can understand, a little bit of the colonizer or whoever is controlling you, and try to speak to someone who comes from Senegal. You don't know what he speaks. So over time, it becomes this hodgepodge of a language called Creole or Patois. In Sierra Leone, they have it. In Liberia, they have it. In Nigeria, they have the Pidgin English because they can't speak to each other. So nobody prevented you. All you need is not to use your language because there is no one that.
Naka Kushite, what are you talking about? Like, I'm not sure exactly what you talking about. Who's talking about being a Native American Indian? Who said that? What are you talking about? Help us understand. What are you talking about?
You speak to, and the next generation, it's gone. The Jews, however, it was Jews. They took them as Jews. Even though they went from country to country to country, they were lucky enough to keep talking to each other because they can understand each other. So they were able to retain the language. This is my starting point. It happened to us on the continent. So don't be fooled. You hear countries like Nigeria, Ghana. If you ask 5 Ghanaians, one from the Ashanti, one from the Ewe, the Ga, the Akwamu, and the northern region and ask them, are you Ghanaians? Yes, we are Ghanaians. Look at our passport. Ask them, what is Ghanaian culture? And they'll start looking at each other. There is no such thing. Ask them, what do you speak in Ghana? They'll start looking at each other. Ask them, what is the Ghanaian sense of value? There's no such thing. How do you guys marry in Ghana? There is no such thing. But you say you're Ghanaians.
We're Phoenix Energy, a family-owned oil company focused on unleashing American oil from North Dakota and Montana.
So what happened?
And Chukwa, you said you are an American citizen. You've been told by FBAs that you are not black. Like, when did they start to have FBA's been telling you that you're not black your whole life? You said you are melanated and you are not American. Well, and you need to worry about your country instead of American business. I mean, are you being an asset to? Well, let me roll this back. We'll have to have a conversation about your experience. Let's say that we have to have a full conversation about, to be fair, the full conversation about your experience. But were Black Americans telling you that you were an American citizen, like your whole, like, were you born here? And how long you been here, and how long has that been happening? I mean, because I'm not gonna act like we don't have no assholes over here, but do the actions of the assholes represent the actions of everybody? Because if we doing that, then we not rocking with Nigerians at all, because some Nigerians have come over here and done some foul stuff to Americans. So, you know, if we're gonna be on some tit for tat stuff, then you know what I'm saying. This guy has the loudest mouth of disdain for FBAs because we're redefining ourselves and what we are. I mean, once again, there's nothing wrong with a group of people defining themselves for themselves, self-actualizing, and making sure that legally we could place ourselves in a position to get what we need. Every other group of Black people should be doing that. If you're from wherever you're from, Jamaica, Cuba, Haiti, whatever there's groups of people who colonize you and your people. Get together and do the same thing. You know what I'm saying?
Going to us happened here. And when I arrived here, I understood it. When I went to Haiti, I was like, whoa. When I went to Jamaica, the same thing. So when I said, I was only speaking here, so I said African Americans, I would have said the same thing about my own countries in the continent. We have no culture.
Yeah, but from that video, what I got from it is you put Haitians on a pedestal.
I didn't. No, let me correct you.
When in comparison,
remember, we watched it. That's why I played that video first, and that's why I wrote down. Remember, I wrote down. He said, Black Americans, we're the only ones who have no culture. This depends on who you talk to. And I played it twice. That's why I played it twice, because I knew it was coming here. He did put Haiti on the pedestal. And now he's trying to say that he's not saying that just Black Americans have no culture. He's trying to say no Black people have culture, according to his definition. And he's trying to walk it back. And we heard what he said.
The Black Americans, you said Haitians, they have a culture. Like you said
no,
that out
you
your
heard
mouth.
him say that. So it was a long video about Haiti.
Mm-hmm.
And during that conversation, I began to talk about why Haitians can fix Haiti, because you don't have Haitians.
Because we just watched. Now let me let it keep playing. We just watched.
You have just a country forcefully imposed upon you a citizenship, but you are from different places in Africa. But right now, if you go somewhere,
I'm sorry. It ain't even on the screen. I'm tripping. I'm sorry. Come on now, stop tripping. All right, here you go. Internet want to trip. But anyway, he is with, I don't know what this thing doing. Let me do this and get this thing together. But he's trying to walk back what he said, because he did say that he was bigger. We were just watching it. He was basically talking about Haitian culture as Haitians having culture intact and us not having culture intact. And he talked about the different aspects of Haitian culture. He even told a young lady that when she would go to some other part in the world, that they would be able to recognize her because of the cultural traits. So he did say that. I'm at 22:20. Let me try to refresh this page so I can get that back up. But he did say that, right? He did say that. It was talking about Haitian culture, Haitians having culture, and Black Americans not having culture. And now he's trying to come back and say that that's not what he was saying. And we heard him say that. So let me find where I was. and look at some comments while I'm looking at this. My man Terrell says, trees like flowers, excuse me. To me, I'm racially black and ethnically black American. I've never said others are not racially black, but acknowledge others' ethnicity and nationality who are I thought that's what we was all doing. I know we got some assholes. But for the most part, I thought that's what we were all doing. Like, we recognize other people black. I even see people from India and be like, what's up, my black man? But we clearly are not seen like that across the diaspora, and we clearly are the only ones seeing others like that for the most part. That's what it seems like. It says Ali Mayu. Yeah, Frank is a guest on the Daily Wrap-Up Show. Not on this show, but on the Daily Wrap-Up Show. The dude is African, yet he's wearing, hey man, look.
Why Haitians can fix Haiti? Because you don't have Haitians. You have just a country forcefully imposed upon you a citizenship, but you are from different places in Africa. But right now, if you go somewhere, you would speak Creole, and somebody would say, oh, that is Haitian. That's what I meant. Not putting them on any pedestal.
So they have a language.
They created one.
So you want to say,
and it's not even useful in any way because it's not an international language.
So they took French and made Creole, right?
That's
what you're saying.
I'm not even Haitian, and that I'm not taking that. You're gonna basically Frank Zanou is saying because white people don't acknowledge Haitian Creole, because white people don't pedestalize Haitian Creole, it's of course it's not enough. It's an international language because white people don't use it. Basically, international languages, from what he's looking at, is languages that white people use. I'm not even Haitian and I'm tripping. I'm not even Haitian and I don't like that comment because you're basing the legitimacy of a language on whether white people use it in mass or not. That's you tripping. I've seen somebody comments in the earlier saying Frank Zanou like to hold up white stuff. It's hey.
English, French, and then over 200 African tribal languages into one.
But Americans would say that they took English and made their own language as well.
And what is that?
It's a broken version of English, but it's still something that we could speak to that's specifically to us.
African American vernacular, Tutnese, Gullah Geechee languages. African Americans Black Americans took English, made Tutnese, made Gullah Geechee language, the Gullah Geechee dialects, and the African American vernacular. That's what.
What language is that?
It's English.
He's talking about
AAVE,
African American Vernacular English. The same way, for example,
I think I've heard. Yes, when I came to this country in 1994, I had a debate on my campus about Ebonics.
Right.
Now,
same thing.
Yeah, and somebody corrected me. I think it was my professor said, no, if you say Ebonics, there is no one collective Ebonics.
Correct.
You have to go into pockets. If the person is from the north, the south, the central, they created their own style around it. So I understand that part. That didn't even qualify as a subculture. So let me give you, Jamaicans don't have a culture. When you say the country Jamaica, no, there's no identifiable as a culture. But the Rastafarians have a culture. Now, let me explain what
So all my people from Jamaica if you from Jamaica in the building, he said y'all don't have culture. All my Haitians in the building, he said y'all don't have culture. People from throughout the diaspora, he said y'all don't have culture. What do you all think? What's your response to Frank Zanou saying now, not only do Black Americans not have culture, nobody throughout the diaspora has culture. What do you all think?
I mean by worldview. The Rastafarians' worldview is that men were put on earth to take care of nature. Okay? That wealth you have to create more than consume. So they live a frugal life. So politically, they are pacifists. They will never go to war. Socially, they are communal and what we call Epicurean. They believe getting high, eat some food, and
so not to stop, but Chukwa, so you said, but are you a Black American, right? If you are a Nigerian, if you're a Black person that was born in Nigeria and you grew up in America, you're a Nigerian American. You're Igbo. Right. You are going to catch some flight if you say you're Black American, because that's like me coming to Nigeria and say, I'm a Nigerian, or that's like me coming to you saying I'm Igbo because I grew up there, and I may have grew up around Igbo culture. That would make me Igbo, right? So it's not necessarily catch-22. You can be a black Nigerian Igbo who's in America, and we all still getting along. Now, once again, you're gonna meet some assholes, but don't judge all of us because of the assholes. Because remember, we're not doing that to you all. But yes, if you do say you're a black American, you will get called a cosplaying tether. If you are a black Nigerian Igbo, you can be Igbo, you can be Nigerian who's in America. You can be that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Because to say you're black American would mean that you have the lineage going back to black American slavery. So, but that would be the same thing of you going to Jamaica and saying that you Jamaican. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's okay. It's okay to be who you are. What's not okay is us to be fighting because of the differences.
Have deep conversation is what life is about. And then religiously, they are Rastafarians. Hippies are the Western version of a Rastafarians. They also had a worldview, and that dictated their relationship with wealth. The hippies believe that humans were put on earth to create and consume, and that living in community and being frugal as to wearing the most inexpensive clothing and using things together is what life is all about. So it guided how you see them dress, where they shop from, why they marry, on and on and on. That's what I mean by any society. If you want to understand them, it's the worldview. The Jews believe that they were put on earth as God's chosen people. That through them, that is.
And the Black American worldview is we believe that we have the autonomy and the right and the God-given right to be free of the system of white supremacy, to be free from being under the thumb of white supremacy. So our worldview is to fight and do whatever we need to do by any means necessary to be free of the system of white supremacy. That's the Black American worldview. That's the foundational Black American worldview. We will fight and do whatever we need to do to be free, autonomous, independent people, free of the system of white supremacy. Our goal is to replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. That is our Black American worldview. Have you asked the right Black people? Because if you haven't asked the right Black people, then I don't know where you're getting at. So
it's a worldview. Now, any child told that, forget hurting one of them, because they are driven by that. That is why they insist on having a community wherever they are. The Chinese, the white community. Do Africans that come from the continent have a community? We don't. Why? Because we don't have a culture. If we had, it would drive us to have a community. In the 50 states of the United States of America, African Americans don't have a community. They have neighborhoods.
You're right,
now,
Ali.
People who got angry with me didn't even ask me, what does culture do anyway? What is it that if I say you didn't have, that it makes you what? Nobody asked that question. What is that thing you're trying to hold on called culture, by the way? What is it?
You care to elaborate on that then? Now?
I'm asking. Once upon a time, John Lennon sang a song. Imagine we don't have religion. Imagine a world without religion, without heaven and hell. He believed in what? The brotherhood of mankind. Sure. So imagine the people without a culture. Maybe they are striving to a brotherhood of mankind. So you take words out of context and then you crucify a man.
No,
Not knowing that I am a victim.
No, we didn't. For one, your words were not, let me make myself big, because I when I was listening to this the other day, I was like, for one, your words were not taken out of context. We heard exactly what you said. You're trying to backslide on what you said. And for two, it's not our fault that you can't accurately articulate yourself. You can see the next clip that I showed. He's actually trying to say that he is saying that we have no culture. And he's trying to say that because we are a recreated amalgamation culture, that it's not real culture. Like, he defines what real culture is. And remember, he created his own definition of culture to fit his worldview and his viewpoint. Nobody's trying to put words in his mouth. Nobody's trying to lie on him or anything like that. We heard what he said. He said what he said. Now he's trying to expand it because he went from saying African Americans are the only ones with no culture. He's compared us to Haitian culture. He said we're the only ones, and now he's saying, well, no black people throughout the diaspora have culture. And so he's trying to soften the blow, and then it's like, we don't get it. No, we get it, and nobody's trying to change your word. We heard exactly what you said. For one, you said what you said, and two, you got to articulate yourself. Say exactly what you want to say. If the argument is we have no culture, that's what you said. But if the argument is our culture is an amalgamation of all these, that's not what you said. That's not what you said. That's not how you explained it, Frank. So don't do that. Don't try to walk it back now. And that's the thing. You're trying to walk it back like you didn't say that. You said it. We got it on video. That's why I played it twice. That's why I played that part twice.
Of a cultureless country.
You know, that's sometimes the risk.
I think we get angry too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
We're too sensitive. I was giving a live talk the other day, and a gentleman, not the way David is behaving, he wrote the book and he said, my brother Frank, he doesn't know what this means to me. He called me on the phone and spoke with me. And we became friends, like on the phone, and I said, I gotta go. Even if it's 3 hours.
I'm not sure what you're listening to, man. Thank you. Hold up. First of all, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it.
All this money, homie. I got all this money, homie.
Where are you getting the idea of blacks being the premium blacks? Like you said, do black Americans have a unique moral authority relative to other black people in the diaspora? We have a unique moral outlook. We do have a unique moral outlook versus everybody else. Everybody has a unique moral outlook. Moral authority? I don't know if it's that much different, but moral outlook, and I'm not sure where you getting off me saying that black Americans are the premium blacks. Like, what did I say that would lead you to thinking that I would say that black Americans are the premium blacks when I'm sitting here constantly, here today, all day and every week, telling black people to work together, telling black people to find the goodness. How many times have I told you that, hey, don't let the actions of a few broad brush the actions of all? The same thing I said with us looking at Nigerians. So I'm confused. Help me out. I'm very confused. Very confused.
I was driving. If I had to fly, I'm going to see this gentleman. Because more than this conversation, there is someone here who really is a thinker. But we got to begin to tame down and accept criticism, because that is the only way societies were built in this world. In my live talk, I told this gentleman when he wouldn't get off my case, and I said, let me tell you something. You don't hate the white man. You don't even fear them. Because if black people hate and fear the white man the way they hate and fear each other, you would all have left this country at the end of slavery.
Left this country and go where?
Go where?
Yeah.
Where did the Jews go to? You know how many lands in Africa was offered to African Americans through the Black Star Line project? It was funded by a British through Marcus Garvey and Kwame Nkrumah, the Black Star Line. Did you go? No. How did you get the Amerigo-Liberia culture move out? 3,400 people only agreed to go to Liberia. What do you mean where to? Plenty of land everywhere. Where did you come back from? How about the Caribbean?
See, that in and of itself.
But I'm not saying it.
No.
I said,
hold on, Frank.
I'm not accusing.
Let me get the day real quick. Yeah.
No. See, the thing of it is, and you gotta understand, right? Like, my favorite verse in the Bible is Proverbs 4:7. It says, "In all thy getting, get an understanding."
Right, Harper.
You gotta understand Frank's perspective. In his mind, it's like, well, shoot, why didn't you go? To me, that's no different than when Kanye sat in front of Harvey Levin and the light skinned boy, never call his name, and said, well, shoot, for 400 years. That's slavery. It sounds like a choice. Like,
I'm gonna get to that.
No, it's not just that, right? It's bigger than that, because what no one talks about is the psyop that was done to us from 1619 through 1865, and then after 1865 all the way through, right? So if you have been told over and over and over and over and over again that you're less than, that you ain't nothing, that you don't even get the right to call yourself a name, there are certain things that get lost in translation because he does not carry that particular experience. He's got his own experiences, and one of the things that I love, and I encourage absolutely everybody to go to this man's YouTube channel, because when he talks about black on black crime, he does not start and stop the conversation at foundational black Americans. He talks about what's happening in Nigeria. He talks about what's happening in Liberia. He talks about what's happening in Ghana. And that is something that's happened throughout the diaspora. And the one thing we all have in common is that we were colonized and psyoped, but none more brutally than us. So if you think, for example, there have been writings from Frederick Douglass, there were writings from Harriet Tubman, there have been plenty of people who have talked about how many people did not want to leave the plantation because it was all they knew, and they were scared almost to a point where they had Stockholm syndrome. The idea of going back to a place they'd never been or had any historical reference to because it had been beaten, threatened, hung, stabbed, lynched out of them. No, I ain't going back there. Why would I? Now, me personally, I know plenty of people who have repatriated, right? And I know plenty of people who love it, and I know plenty of people who get called all types of vacatas and every daggone thing else over there. I also understand that there's a caste system over there. There are people, there have been times when I have been called over there mixed because of the texture of my hair or the fairness of my skin or the narrowness of my nose. Because whether we like to admit it or not, when it comes to a foundational black American line, you can always find, if you go up farther enough, somebody who played master got loose in the slave quarters, right? Or as they like to say, black buck got loose in the big house, but it wasn't us getting loose in the big house. You understand what I'm saying? So there's all these things. And to the John Lennon point, that's ironic, and I will tell you why. John Lennon was a part of the Beatles. The Beatles invasion came about because the Beatles were the very first Backstreet Boys. The Beatles were doing what Ike Turner was doing, what Jimi Hendrix was doing, what Little Richard was doing, what all these foundational black Americans were doing, but because they were palatable. And they told you themselves that they were singing black music no different than Elvis. So yeah, it's real easy to say, imagine when you're a European, rich, white man with an Asian wife who has more money than he knows what to do with, who had the unmitigated gall to say he was bigger than Christ himself and not get canceled. Yeah, you can imagine that because you're imagining it behind a gated community. And the second he stepped out of that gated community, one of his own people got it. But even that is culture. When we were not allowed to marry each other, to the point when you talked about traditions, we jumped the broom as a symbol to each other and everybody on the plantation or the property, because all slaves weren't on plantations, that this person is my person. I jumped the broom. To this day, I jumped the broom with my wife. That's a part of who we are. That is unique to us. No, we don't have a language, and I'm not going to rehash what I've already said, but we have to have a different level of understanding of what has happened, what continues to happen, and how there is a global conspiracy, whether we choose to understand it or not, to keep all of us separate. Having said that, there are things that happen in Haiti because of what Bill Clinton did when he was president and afterwards. There are things that happen in Jamaica that happen because of the British Crown, right? We all have our different cultural battles to fight, but we're all still black. However, me saying that I have to take care of my two daughters does not mean that I don't care about every other black woman on the face of the planet. They are my immediate responsibility as a foundational black American. My immediate responsibility is to foundational black Americans first, not saying foundational black Americans first and F everybody else. I'm saying foundational black Americans first because we're the ones that are bleeding and everybody has benefited from our blood, whether they choose to admit it or not. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment do not happen with us. Civil rights does not happen with us. These very loose, very fun immigration laws that folks are now playing and screwing all of us throughout the diaspora who are here in the Americas does not happen without foundational black Americans.
Cedric P. B51 with the 499 super chat.
Look at all this money, homie. I got all this money, homie.
Thank you, Cedric. You said, I noticed there are people confronting you, having a disingenuous mindset. Say to you, my brother, keep up the good work. Much respect to you. Thank you, Mr. Cedric. Much respect to you too. And I'm noticing, I'm peeping it. But you know, we gotta. I lean on facts, knowledge, history, and stuff. We could just say that. We could just talk about history and knowledge and stuff. So facts, things that actually happen. But thank you very much.
And so all of those things are extremely important to that conversation.
Stop buying courses. But first things first, let me build your store free today and then give.
So what would be your definition? My fault is, what would be your definition of culture? Frank gave his definition of culture. What is your?
But one of my problems with those brothers right there is they should have established definitions from the beginning. They should have set a foundation and established definitions, and don't allow anybody to come in and create their own definitions. There's already a definition of culture. Why are you asking somebody what is their definition of culture when the definition of culture already exists? Set the foundation first, and then you go from there. That's why I read out the definition of culture, so we have a foundation to go from. You can't create your own definition of culture to help to try to fit your argument. No, there's there's whatever you have going on. If it don't fit into the definition, you can't change it for yourself. Now you're bullshit.
Definition of culture.
My definition of culture is traditions, it's style, it's certain taboos. You know, and taboos don't have to be a big, huge thing. Bring raisins in a potato salad to a family reunion. Watch what happens to you, right? Or if we're gonna talk about taboos that still happen but are still considered taboo, bring home a white girl. See what happens. You at bare minimum are getting talked about. Not saying that there's not an OJ. Not saying that the majority of professional athletes, entertainers, those types of people who get to a certain level don't still do that, but it's taboo. Curse while the pastor is talking during his sermon. Those are all taboos, right? Walking on the
bathe with your hand, go into black people's house and bathe with your hand and say you don't need no washcloth and bathe with your hand. Cultural taboo. I just want to throw one in.
Inside of the street as opposed to the outside of the street. I was raised, but again, my grandfather was born in, I think, 1890, and my grandmother was born in 1904. So my dad was born in 35. So I got a different worldview than a lot of people my age. But there's certain things you don't do. You don't hit a woman. Like, there's certain things that aren't necessarily only unique to us, but there are certain things that over time we have built that make up our culture beyond just language. Spirituality was robbed from us, language was robbed from us, and yes, even
look at this OO's corner. It says the anthropological definition of culture. Anthropology is a social science. It's human learned behavior. I mean, we people don't even understand the basics of what culture is. Like, shared experiences, shared human behaviors that they experience and they create over time through interacting with each other. All human beings on the face of this earth, no matter their experiences, have culture. Whether you want to argue the quality of the culture or not, but everybody has culture. Everybody. To say a group of people don't have culture is ignorant. All people have culture. You might not be happy with it, but it's culture.
With that, with the example Frank gave, and I'll lay my plane on this. Yeah, when you go to school, they got to teach a certain way. Even when you go, I got a cousin that lives in Osaka, Japan, and she teaches English as a second language to Japanese businessmen because they want to come over here. You understand what I'm saying to you? But you have to have a baseline language. But the difference is you're choosing to go to school versus being forced, whipped, chained, bred like cattle, and had anything cultural taken from you. Even the ability to name your child wasn't up to you. My last name didn't come from the continent. My last name comes from the Anderson slave owners of South Carolina. I know exactly what plantation my ancestors come from. Can't tell you the boat though.
I wanted to ask, so where did you get your definition of culture?
Well, my background is mass comm journalism. And if you do advanced mass comm journalism, of course, you're going to do multicultural understanding. And in the study of multicultural differences understanding, of course, you study how languages were developed, what it meant for people, and so on and so forth. And it's the first thing that allows you to understand how to interact when you move from one place to go to another place. So through that, and then of course my column for 13 years was life and culture. I didn't report on politics, economics, or wars. I reported on life and culture. It allowed me to study, and I realized, how would I know? I began to compare it to where I'm coming from, and I said something went wrong. I would give me just a little bit to explain something. You know where my interest as a black man became piqued after traveling the world, when I began to hear the slogans we create, the narratives we create. Okay, I was speaking in Kenya on a university campus. One young man got up and told me how I missed the point about why Kenya is the way it is, and blamed the white man who came to take their culture and stop them from speaking their local languages and gave us Christianity. Oh, he went down the laundry list of things that happened to them, and it's still happening. So I said, wow, you're a brilliant man. I've never met anyone who have made this list, but I have only one question. Why did it work? And that is what we refuse to ask ourselves. So we always say
no, we don't.
They did this to us. They did this to us. But we never ask ourselves, why did it work?
We do know.
See, I've been to the Caribbean.
What do you mean? What is he talking about? He's never asked himself. We read on this channel on Mondays, we do book readings. We read The Destruction of Black Civilization, which gave us the answer to his question. Why did it happen? Why did it happen? What? Tribalism was exploited, advanced weaponry, advanced aggression, advanced warlike strategies. The outsiders came into Africa, superior weaponry, superior fighting forces, bloodlusting. They played on the tribalism and was able to conquer the Africans and continue to conquer. And remember, the Europeans came in after these African people had a long history of battling with other outsiders. So we're talking about over the centuries and over the millennium, groups of people becoming weaker and weaker and weaker because they fighting with outsiders over and over and over and over again. Then when the Europeans came in, the Europeans ain't doing nothing but clean up. We learned that in the destruction of Black civilization, why it happened. Same thing with here. Why it happened in America? Well, superior weaponry, superior fighters. And then going back to the question earlier, he's saying, why didn't we go back to Africa? Even if we went back to Africa, let's say we did go back to Africa, the white supremacy still exists. It's still a global thing. And we don't have to go back to Africa. We are American. We're Black Americans. We don't have to go back to Africa. We are here. We're going to stake our claim here. But let's say we did. How does that end the system of white supremacy? How does that end our relationship with white supremacists? Because they can still, aren't they dominating in Africa now? Aren't they controlling a lot in Africa now? Aren't a lot of the problems in Africa now because of the white supremacists? You can't run from white supremacy. We ain't going nowhere. You can't outrun a global system. We don't have to go anywhere. But you know,
I've been to many cities.
I'm gonna let this play a little bit longer, then we're gonna get to the Karen Hunter, then we're gonna wrap this thing up. I'm getting hungry.
The United States. I've lived in the UK. I've seen blacks in the UK. I've seen black in China. I've seen blacks in almost every corner of the world. And I've seen blacks in America and on the continent. And everything we are describing,
Fillmore, we spend $3 trillion. That's not power. Spending all that money is not power. There's a lot of fallacy in the spending power thing. That is not power. You don't have power when you giving all your money away.
It's uniform about us. You really think that the largest number of people on earth in terms of countries, 54 in one continent, about 10 or 13 in the Caribbean, black groups in the UK, in China, in America. And we are all suffering that psychological warfare and responding to it for years. Nothing in the world, use any probability, has ever touched a coin and it fell on its head 9 times out of 10. Impossible. We need to re-examine us as black people. What is it? And it's nothing we are saying. Because if it is true, then there's something really wrong first with us. Let me tell you something. Korea, nobody. It's a miracle that Korea is what it is today. It is the only country in the world, or in Asia, let me just speak, that has never...
I'm sorry, my bad. Free. I'm sorry. Let me back it up.
Never wage war. They call them Pakachong, inferior, by the Japanese, the Mongolians, Chinese. They were bullied and they were invaded, colonized, tortured for hundreds of years.
Like giving your money away to other groups of people is not power. When you aggregate your money, when you concentrate your money and aggregate it and use it as a collective force, then the money is power. We have no power in frivolously giving our money away. Most Black Americans don't have that much money. Most Black Americans don't make that much money. Most Black Americans make around $30,000 to $40,000. The average Black American make $40,000 to $45,000, maybe $50,000 a year. Most Black Americans don't have money like that. Most Black Americans are overspending. Black Americans have a consumerism problem. We have a spending problem. That spending, that much we spend is not power. It's showing our lack of power. It's showing our lack of continuity. It's showing our lack of ability to aggregate our money and use it as one. Like giving all your money to other groups is not power. I don't care what nobody say. They call it spending power, but it's a myth. It's not power. It's a exact showing of the lack of structure that we have as an economic group. And it shows that we're not an economic group. We are consumers. All that shows is how Black people are consumers. You say you have to disagree as Jamaican Black Americans have that much spending. It's not spending power. Explain to me how it's power. Mark Sue, explain to me how us spending that much money is power. How is it powerful for us? How is giving all of our money away to other people powerful for us? What has it done for us? Over the past couple of years, I've been tracking how much money Black people have been spending. So how has that power manifested itself? How has that power showed up? Give me an example of how that power expresses itself or how that power is manifested. Because I can tell you that it doesn't. There's no power in giving all your money away. It's power in aggregating your money and using it as a block. Just so you're helping me make my point. You see Black Americans buy what they want. So that means we have spending power. No, that means we have a consumerism problem. That's what that means. Spending power. No. You get power in saving your money and being able to use your money as leverage and having that. There's no spending power in that. I see Black people buy stuff all day and be poor. There's no power in poverty. There are people in the projects right now with Jordans on their feet, $200 shoes on their feet, who can't pay their light bill. That's not power. What do you mean? But what I'm saying, they also have money. Having money to spend does not mean power. There are a lot of people with money to spend. Nobody ever said Black America didn't have money to spend. The argument is Black America doesn't have spending power. Spending all of your money doesn't give you power. All right? It doesn't. Except for them, what you say, for them to spend money, you have to make money. Now you've moved the goalpost. Let's continue. You've moved the goalpost.
Why didn't it work on them? The Jews went into slavery, the globe, 4,000 years in the diaspora. In Egypt, in Baghdad, which was formerly Babylon. When they were in Europe, what was the name the Aryan race through the Nazi organization said they were? Jews are inferior. It's what they said over and again to German kids. When they arrived in America, Sammy Davis had a joke. He said he was getting on the bus in Montgomery. The driver told him to get to the back of the bus. He said, no, you don't understand. I'm a Jew. He said, oh, get off the bus then. In 1977, a black man bought a home in Westport, Connecticut before a Jew. Jews were not allowed to rent or buy a home in Greenwich, in Westport, in Darien. There's a story Donald Trump had to build the first golf course when he became aware that Jews and blacks were not allowed to play in golf courses. What that means? Jews had it tough in this country through redlining, where they were not allowed to set up businesses, so they were forced to converge and start loaning to themselves from within. It didn't happen to them for 1,000 years, longer than we were enslaved or colonization. So the question you need to ask is, if they did all these things against us, why did it work?
The Jews did not have an experience anything close to what Black Americans experienced here in America. Frank, stop being disingenuous. Stop being disingenuous. If the Jews had experienced the same thing that the Black Americans would experience, they wouldn't be in the position that they are in. Stop it. They're even allowed to be classified as a white group. Stop it, Frank. But I'm gonna let Dave go ahead and do his thing.
Let me give you one thing to the response I said earlier. Why African Americans didn't leave after slavery? Not because there was no place to go to. That is completely a lie. Ask yourself, the Ashantis knew that they were the most powerful tribe in Ghana, followed by the Airways, the Gans, the Chuis, Akwamus, everybody. They knew that they didn't form the country Ghana, that they were forced, okay? But it came to an end. For Ghana, 1957. Why didn't they go back to become the individual tribes they were? Was anybody there telling them you can't? No. Do you know why they stayed as a country?
What?
They were attracted by the bling the colonial left behind.
Oh, now we're getting
the roads, the hospitals, the schools,
somewhere.
the post office, the fire the department, the buses with air conditioning from London imported to their country, the railway lines, all the beautiful things. Why didn't you live here? It's not because you don't know where to go. It's because you didn't hate the white man and you weren't afraid of him. I think you're.
Yeah, but he's talking to somebody. He's talking like he hates the white man and like he's done something to the white man. We don't have to go anywhere. And he's right. Yeah, a lot of black people are attracted to the shiny stuff that white people have. He's right about that. A lot of black people not gonna change nothing because they're attracted to the shiny stuff that white people have. But isn't he as well? Isn't Frank Zanu as well attracted to the shiny stuff white people have? If not, why is he so immersed in the white world? Why isn't Frank Zanu in Benin doing his thing? He's immersed in the white world, right? I'm just saying, but what else I forgot what else what is he? Let me run it, but let him say it.
The Chuis, Akwamus, everybody. They knew that they didn't form the country Ghana, that they were forced, okay?
Right.
But it came to an end. For Ghana, 1957. Why didn't they go back to become the individual tribes they were? Was anybody there telling them you can't? No. Do you know why they stayed as a country?
What?
They were attracted by the bling the colonial left behind. The roads, the hospitals, the schools, the post office, the fire the department, the buses with air conditioning from London imported to their country, the railway lines, all the beautiful things. Why didn't you live here? It's not because you don't know where to go. It's because you didn't hate the white man and you weren't afraid of him. I think.
But he's also talking out of both sides of his neck too, because you're gonna see it even in the next clip. If we're not the same people, if African people don't see us as the same as them, then we have no place to go. There's no homeland to go to as Black American people if it's true what he's saying. He said that they don't see themselves the same as us. So if you see yourself as different than us, if African people don't see us as a group of African people, we're a whole totally another group of people. We have nowhere to go. This is our land, and why can't we stay here? Why do we have to go somewhere else? Because we don't have a history of going other places and trying to make our life better going other places. We stay here and do things. We had no choice but to stay here. But because Frank has, I've heard him say that African people don't see each other as one. So we have nowhere to go. I'm gonna let it play for a little more, and then we're gonna go to the camera.
You're eliminating the fact that we built blood, sweat, tears, deaths, so much. We are the biggest innovators. We built America. Why give up everything we built? America wouldn't exist off the pains and struggles off of Black Americans. You don't just give that up. We also, if with asking your question, we do also ask, why didn't Africans or other Caribbean people or other nations join us and make us a bigger nation in America? We built it. Everything came off our death. And every time we created something big, it was destroyed, burned down.
Like where?
What are you talking about?
Oh, wait. I got this one. Don't worry. Wilmington, North Carolina, Eatonville, Rosewood, Tulsa.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the fact that Frank Zanu is in this conversation and they're giving him a history of thing or talking about what we built in this country, and he asked a question like what? The fact that you don't even know what we built in this country is a problem. The fact that you're not versed on the history of us is a problem. How do you have such strong opinions about a group of people that you're not historically adept on? You don't know the information, you don't know the history. So how do you have such strong opinions and you don't know the history? What do you mean, like what? When they ask you, when they say we built things, you say like what the hell do you mean, like what? How can you have an honest conversation with somebody who doesn't know the history? What are we talking about? That's crazy to me. And as the conversation goes on, it happens more and more and more. They have to educate him, but I'm gonna let Dave continue educating him a little bit on things that were built and destroyed.
Philadelphia, Chester, Pennsylvania, Wilmington, North Carolina,
right, Renee.
Blackwood, South Carolina,
in Jersey.
Yeah, you know, there were plenty of places. Anytime we had any infrastructure, two things happened. They decided to integrate it. Look at have you been to Central Park? You know what Central Park is, right?
It's a park.
No, it's not. Central Park was actually a place called Seneca Village. It was when freed Black people decided to converge in one area, and they decided to redistrict that area, even though they owned the land and the houses that they built free and clear, and they destroyed those people, displaced those people, and built a park around it. There's an old song Joni Mitchell said, "Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone." They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. They paved paradise and put up Seneca Village. In Georgia, just outside of Atlanta, there's a place called Lake Lanier. It used to be a thriving Black town. They decided to kill the Black folks, get rid of the ones they couldn't kill, and then people right now are boating on it every weekend. That's what happened to us. That's what got destroyed. And it doesn't mean that we don't keep building, but after a while, even if you look at the flea experiment, are you familiar with the flea experiment?
The what?
The flea experiment.
No.
So I'm gonna stop this one right here because time. But we can see that Frank is very disingenuous, talking out both sides of his neck and don't know a lot. Okay, we got RBG Tech with the 10.
All this money, homie. I got all this money, homie.
RBG Tech with the $10 super chat. I really appreciate you. You said Frank is still learning, is wise, is to be this unlearned policy as an African elder. I hope someone's FBA grandma gives him a hug and tells him, keep living, baby. It's not, look, it's given a lot of agency vibes. It is giving a lot of agency vibes because it's real sketchy that you are so critical of people that you're not that familiar with. Come on now. Now, let's take it a step further. Let's go to the interview on the Karen Hunter show. Because to me, this is one that really put the nail in the coffin with Frank for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's tripping. So let me share my screen. All right, here we go. You said, and that's why white supremacy. Yep.
That word, the African American culture. What is it?
Okay,
like
fine.
like hip hop,
Oh,
not
Jesus
hip hop. I mean, I don't want to. Yes, I feel like
you
it's-
haven't thought about it. It's fine. Don't make things up.
I'm not making it up.
Okay,
I feel like
then educate me. You feel. You should know.
Okay.
You were born and raised
All right.
here.
Bring it down, Smith. Bring it down. Do you stand by that?
PPP, you funny.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're talking to somebody who's not African American and asking her questions. You don't have a problem with that? You don't think that that was a little...
So that conversation was the Haitian conversation.
So why did African American culture come up? Why did freedom and African American culture come up in a conversation about Haiti? That's what I want to know. And who asked the question? It says PPB says if we flip the tables and ask him why he still allows whites in this country, well, man, you know, he gonna say because we have no culture.
So it
No,
was
but you said African American. You brought black people in. You didn't say Haitians.
No, I'm saying the conversation I had with Nancy was Haitians can fix Haiti. It was in that conversation
Yes, he
that
did,
it came
Ali.
out, and it was a soundbite on TikTok. Now, when I went to the W.E.B. Du Bois Center in Ghana, I was a young fellow when first we went, and there was a sign on the wall, big one. I don't know, maybe a poet who wrote it, maybe Langston Hughes or something, I forgot, but they had it on the wall, and it said, the problem and the pain of slavery was not the work they make us do. It is the fact that it took away our language, our culture, our history, our traditions. And that leaves a man like a tree with no roots. And it hit me. I wrote it down in my notebook. Now, when you listen to...
Yeah, but you have no roots connected to the continent of Africa, but you will grow new roots where you are. We have roots, deep roots here in America. We don't have roots in Africa. Our roots have been ripped from Africa, but our roots have been rerouted, replanted here in America. And like every other people around the world, our roots are now here in America. We don't have African roots. We have American roots.
A lot of the writings about slavery, the first thing you hear, even in the United States, is about how our life, our culture, our language and history was taken away from us.
Are you getting the runaround from workers' comp after your work injury? You're not alone. A lot of injured workers are stuck in a...
That is very common.
So
in
what
songs,
okay,
music.
okay.
I met Alex Haley's.
Hold on. You're from Benin.
Yeah.
You're not there now. You're here. You're an American citizen. You came here. You left there to come here. Right. The Homie Kingdom. We love the Black Panther and all of this, and the Dora Milaje based on the Homie Warriors and Woman King. We love that. But the Homie Kingdom. One of the ways in which your origin, your country of origin, Benin, conquered, they would sell their people into bondage to the Europeans, into this transatlantic slave trade. When you lost, you got sold. And every year, you got 333,000 pounds sterling for black bodies to be sold into the transatlantic slave trade, which would be worth about $16.7 million annually every single year. It was Benin known as the slave coast because of the flourishing trade of human bodies. That was your protocol. That was the way in which you dominated. And it went on for more than a decade. In the 1780s to 90s, Benin sold more than 102,000 bodies into bondage. So epigenetically, one could argue, Frank Zanu, that part of your way of knowing is to sell out your people. One could argue that. Maybe that.
Phil Minor. So tell me the group of African people. Tell me the group of black people, or people in the diaspora around the world who's in a good shape. Tell me a group of people who are doing better than we are. Who's the group of black people around the world who are in a better position than we are here in America, right? We're not going nowhere. We're not. We staying right here. We're gonna enjoy our soul food and we're gonna enjoy our hip hop, but other places around the world are not doing better than us. Other groups of black people around the world are not doing better than us. We have our roots right here in America, and we're doing well for ourselves. It could be worse. For the terror and the trauma that we've endured, for us to be the lead, like one of, if not the leading group of black people in the world, from the terror that we endured, for us to be where we are, the world is lucky. The world is lucky we're not a truly, truly vile, insane group of people going around terrorizing everybody else. The world is lucky that we got sent some class, culture, and all those things. Y'all not gonna make us, y'all can't make us feel bad about who we are, because we understand history. We understand what happened to everybody around the world, and there are not other groups of black people in the world who are in a better position than we are. All other groups of people have experienced the slavery, the colonialism, all these things. We ain't going nowhere. And if you do want to go somewhere, cool. Trust me, I'm not going to argue with nobody who wants to leave. But for the most of us, we ain't leaving. If you want to leave, cool. I'm not going to tell you not to. I'm not saying that's even wrong. But what I am saying, we ain't going nowhere. But I will say this: make sure that you understand that wherever you go, the system of white supremacy is still going to be existing. Until we end the system of white supremacy, a global system, no matter where you go, that system of white supremacy is still going to be alive and well.
It's in your epigenetics, because to me, to say something so boldly that black people have no culture with no references, and you're talking to somebody that's not black, you're talking to somebody who clearly wasn't educated enough, you're throwing questions at her, give us two things, two values. Well, I can give you 15, I'm gonna give you more, but family and integrity. And we don't really do well with sellouts. That's another black cultural value. But I was looking at that and I was saying, wow, and you stand by it. So
hold on. You said that's the point. If you were to come home and all of work on the continent, then it's heaven, quite literally come home. Well, why isn't the continent heaven now? What's stopping the continent from being heaven now? What's stopping black people on the continent from doing what they got to do now? Like, nothing's stopping them. Nothing's stopping the continent from being heaven now. Maybe colonization, though. The effects of colonization. So.
You still stand by black people have no culture?
So Benin didn't sell slaves.
They sold. I did my research. I'm sorry.
I know.
Maybe you don't know it.
I know.
Because it's clear to me that you don't know a lot of things, but you don't know it.
Allow me to explain what I mean, please. I really want to have a very respectful conversation. So you said Benin sold. Benin did not sell slaves, because when slaves were bought from that region, there was no Benin. There was no country called Benin.
The homie.
No.
Okay. Well, whoever, it's the same landmass, correct? Same people?
No, at all. They have nothing in common. Please allow me. The place that became called Dahomey was at Independence.
All right, so listen up. State Farm was trying to charge me $197 for car insurance. No, thank you.
The place you're calling Benin was not there. Dahomey was not there during slavery. What was there were tribes. Agbome, the women warriors you mentioned, they are not from Dahomey or from Benin. They are from only one tribe called the Agbome tribe. That region had about 52 different, distinct tribes. Only one of them captured slaves from either the Aja, the Yoruba, the Bana, or the Nagongo areas and sold. They didn't sell their people. An example, if there is a war in, let's say, Asia or in Europe, Italians captured Portuguese or Spanish and English and sold them to the Chinese. They haven't sold their own people. even though the Caucasians who live in a region. So the slaves sold were only sold by Agbome tribe. Way before it became Dahomey as a republic that forced 52 different tribes to come together by the French and call the place Dahomey. The people, the other 51 tribes that are now part of the country called Benin, including Agbome, they all, including my father's tribe, we hate the Agbomens because we know they capture people and they sell them. So that is a correction I want to make. So saying Benin,
but you're actually making my point that it is that notion that somehow you are not part of when I talk about Black culture, it is the oneness. It is the understanding that we may be something torn and new, but we are in this thing together. That got to begin with. That got to begin with.
And I don't usually agree with Karen Hunter. I don't agree with Karen Hunter a lot, but I'm agreeing with Karen Hunter on this. This is our worldview. That's part of our worldview, Frank. The oneness, understanding that divided we fall, together we can be strong, because we learn from history that the tribalism and keeping us divided will help white people stay in charge. Will help white supremacy stay the powerhouse that it is. But if you don't learn from history, I mean, but that's part of our worldview, Mr. Franklin.
And for you to come here and to make that somehow we don't have culture because of your lack of knowledge of what culture is.
What I'm saying, as science says, when you buy slaves, the danger of buying slaves is you rob them of their culture. That is, of course, a vacuum.
Okay, I'm gonna bring in, because I'm very clear that I'm not a historian. So I'm not gonna speak on things I do not know. I'm going to invite everybody who is not a historian. If you read some things, you went down YouTube rabbit hole, you are not an expert. You have not lived your life studying this. And I'm going to invite you to stop talking about things you don't know. But in the meantime, I'm going to
You haven't said something I don't know. That's the point. What is it I don't know? I've lived
that Black people don't have culture. You believe that Black people don't have culture.
But I'm asking you to explain to me.
I'm going to actually
uprooted you from your original habitat, and they took everything away from you. What is wrong to say these people's culture have been taken away from them? I don't understand.
Okay, well, I'm going to actually.
But see what he just said right there. That's a part of the goalpost moving that he does, because he didn't go viral for saying that our culture was taken away from us. He wouldn't have went viral for that. Everybody know that the original culture was taken away from us. He went viral because he said we have no culture. That's why he went viral. Now, in this video, we're gonna get a better understanding of what he be trying to say.
Bring somebody in who knows more about this than I do, who studies Africa, who studies Black history, who teaches at Clark Atlanta. So we're gonna bring in Dr. Daniel Black when we come back. Frank Zano is here. He's made a statement before the break, in quoting W.B. Du Bois, who's he has a whole center in Ghana, in Accra. There was a quote there that you quoted, and you went on a talk show, or you were on your own show, you invited somebody on and you said Black people have no culture. And I asked you, do you stand by that? And you said yes, because of that quote. So I thought it would be great to have somebody who actually teaches this to come on and inform all of us why that is. I said you were wrong, but this is your view and your view can't be wrong, but why it's not helpful. Let's say it like that. It's not helpful. So let me welcome Professor of Africana Studies at Clark Atlanta in Atlanta, author of many books, Dr. Daniel Black is here. Hi. Your internet. Look at God. Go ahead.
Wait a minute. Yes. Brother Frank, how are you, my brother?
Doing very well. Thank you.
Good. Very good. I first want to say that I am on here to enjoy a beautiful exchange. I am not at all on here to attack or to in any way incite rebellion. I certainly believe in communication, as Karen does. I certainly believe in truth, like all three of us do. And we all believe in integrity. And I think it could be helpful if I can just offer this possibility, right? I think what could really, 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 really help this dialogue is that there's a premise here that I think is problematic. But I don't think it's yours, Mr. Frank. I think it's what people have taught in the world. And most of us have taken it because it's just what historians have said. And that premise is this. When Africans were enslaved in Africa and scattered around the world, everything, all their culture, I think you were saying this a minute ago, was stripped from them. That's the error. That's the error in this whole thing. Because a process cannot strip culture, the totality of culture, from a people. Culture sometimes is in the artifacts of what people have, but culture is also in the flesh. Anywhere a person goes, their culture goes with them. Pieces of that culture in the dance, it's in the body, in the language. We brought African languages to America because we spoke African languages in Africa. We were certainly denied speaking those languages after a while once we were enslaved. But those languages and the influences of those languages are still in our Black English tongues right now, right? So the premise here is that African people who were enslaved and taken from Africa lost all of Africa in the process of being enslaved. That's the error.
Right. Right.
Are you looking to sell your house as is without paying for costly repairs, inspections?
Right. Much of the culture came with us. Then through transmutation and synthesis, we revised through some force and through some voluntary actions. We revised a lot of African culture in order that it could fit the context and the circumstances and the brutality under which we lived in this diasporic place, right? Called the Americas. So there's much culture here that came along with us, and there's much culture that we revised and gave birth to once we got here. For example, you get jazz music in America, but jazz has its roots in Africa. But the jazz itself is absolutely an American continuum, on the American continuum, on the American aesthetic continuum in terms of culture. You get gospel music in America. You don't get gospel music in Africa. What you get now is Christian music in Africa that white Christians have taken. But gospel music is a cultural regenerative act that happened in the Americas that has certainly found its way back to Africa. Even traditions like jumping the broom, when we as enslaved people wanted to get married, we created that ritual here. African people created that ritual as a part of African culture, as a means of creating a ritualized way whereby we could signify the validity of our own marriages and relationships. But that is particularly an African-American cultural phenomenon, right? And so what I'm simply saying is I understood the premise of what you were saying, Mr. Frank, right? What most people misunderstand, though, is that we brought a culture with us and we modified and transmuted it once we arrived in this place called America.
Thank you.
What might you say to that, sir?
We said thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
And,
Yes.
and let me just clear this up, because if you felt an ambush coming. I feel like if people have airwaves, we are in a space right now where there's so much division, particularly there are these culture wars going on right now between Blacks and Caribbeans, and that's on purpose, because divided we are conquered. That's how we got conquered. You just told us the story of the whole area known as what was first, the French West Africa, and it was divvied up, but all of Africa's been divvied up. And you said you hate these people because they sold these people, but we're all one people. And if we don't understand that, we're going to be conquered again. And if people have microphones and they're constantly out here saying these things that animate a negative vibe about Black people, it's no good. And especially when it comes out of a Black mouth, it creates the division, or it foments the division, or it seasons the division that is already brewing. For what purpose? So I really wanted to say, what's your purpose?
When people hear things, you make individual conclusions as you hear it. It may not be why will I come from Benin Republic and be saying things. I was speaking not long ago in Boston, and I said, Benin has no culture. Now, I don't understand what at all it's offensive when people, but I was lucky that it was a monologue and it waited until a Q&A. So somebody asked me to explain. And I say, you cannot raise your child as a Beninois, but you can raise your child as an Ajah tribe, a Bome tribe, with that tribe. But now they are calling us.
But that's the difference between Benin culture and Black American culture. Because we can call ourselves Black Americans. Because that's how we oriented ourselves. That's our experience. That's how we live. You might not can say this is Benin culture, but we can say this is Black American culture. And that's what some of the disconnect comes. For one, he think that all of the culture, all of the African culture was stripped. And two, he don't understand that they're the cultural difference. Yes, we have been and we're going to continue to say that Black America as a whole is our culture. You can't say Benin has a culture, but we can say Black America have a culture because we're different than you. Our cultural makeup is different than you. Our experience is different from you. But that's where he's getting it mixed up because he has this fixed worldview. This is how we see the world and we see culture, and they expect everybody else to see it through that same lens. So that's what a lot of the disconnect is coming. But a lot of it also is he's going online and projecting it and being forceful about it and saying this is what it is, and that's why he's getting a lot of the pushback.
Benin, and if you take 5 Beninois, and people from Benin are called Beninois. If you take 5, let me use.
And to clear it up, he didn't say jazz came from Africa. He said there are roots, there are African roots that come with jazz, but he clearly said jazz is of the American continuum. He did say that.
Nigeria that is more popular. If you take 5 different Nigerians to France or any outside country, and you ask them, what do you speak in Nigeria? They will start looking at each other and say, it depends on who you ask.
Right.
If you ask them, what is a Nigerian culture? They will say, it depends on who you ask. If you ask them, what do you eat in Nigeria? They will say, it depends on who you ask. If you ask a Nigerian, 5 different ones, Igbo, Yoruba, Bendelai, Calabar, Plateau, Sokoto, what is the value systems of Nigerians? They will say, it depends on who you ask. But if you ask these same 5 questions to a Yoruba, he will give you right answers. So it means when the countries were created, the people who once had distinct culture with which they raised their children, traditions, norms, and everything, when they told them to become Nigeria or Benin or Ghana, they don't have anything at all in common. They are the Tower of Babel. And I have to educate myself that we have a problem. When I call my nieces and cousins, they cannot finish a sentence in my language completely without adding English or French. The French and English itself, they can't even speak it properly without us adding. That is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see the problems we are suffering on the continent today. It's all because in some cases like Kenya, 42 different tribes that have nothing in common with each other are forced to believe that they have a country. So I did a test in Kenya. I went to speak on the university campus. There were about 250. And I asked them, how many Kikuyus are in the room? And many students raised their hands. How many Luos? How many Maasai? And how many?
Right.
I did about 7 of the 42 tribes. And they raised their hands. And I paused for a second and I said, how many Kenyans are in this room? And the same hands went up again. And then everybody burst out laughing. So I asked them, when you wake up in the morning,
stop buying courses. But first things first, let me build your store free today and then give.
Are you a Kenyan first or you are a Kikuyu first? And that became a long conversation for them to understand why corruption, nepotism, tribalism, all these things have become, and even killing each other in the same country thoughtlessly. So what I mentioned here was because I was speaking here. Once upon a time, John Lennon sang a song and said, imagine if there is a world with no religion. There was no heaven, there was no earth. It will be a brotherhood of mankind living in love. Now imagine a world without cultures, which gives birth to these worldviews and superiority and all that. It will be a brotherhood of mankind. Now, if somebody takes a soundbite from that long conversation, which was an hour, and you listen to it, then of course, as I read the comments, and I have got many phone calls, many have said, I think I know what you tried, because I've been saying this, both Africans and African Americans. I do not believe at all that simply describing something, because I have seen, and I must say, if you take people from their original root. Now, whatever, everything, Dr. Black, you said, yes, it's true. People live thousands of years. Some of the things they do becomes almost like a DNA. And I said to my friend in Bridgeport, who was a retired African-American police officer, and I said, I look at you. He said, take a look at me and tell me, where do you think I came from? And I said, you would fit easily as a Yoruba man. We were laughing. He said, look, I did my DNA, and I actually pointed to those areas. And I said, but he asked me, why is it then we can't get along? And I said, let me explain something which is happening in my own country. I said, Dwayne, the African Americans you see, the Jamaicans you see, the Haitians you see, the reason they could not speak the language, continue to speak it, is because it was not one group tribe that was enslaved. If they did that, they would have continued speaking their language. Take a little bit of this. When they arrived here, they could not, because in Benin, when I travel 9 miles from my birthplace in my own country, I need an interpreter.
Sure.
But the African Americans or the Haitians or the Jamaicans who arrived here, because they were just pockets of different tribes with different languages, they couldn't speak. So in the case of Jamaica, they started using a little bit of their language they can remember, a little bit of French or English or Spanish, and then it became Patois.
Correct.
The same became Creole.
Correct.
Remember, the Amerigo Liberians, they took former slaves and sent them to Liberia.
Right.
They came back, they could not speak their languages, but they were indigenous still in Liberia. So they now have to force to speak with the indigenous. Finally, Liberia is one of the countries in Africa that has Creole, the only one in Sierra Leone.
So very possibly, it seems to me, because what you're saying, I think is right, Mr. Frank, there, right? I think that's right. I want to propose possibly, my elder, that perhaps the way you said it, or yes, it might have been taken maybe just out of a context, but also perhaps the way you said it, the notion that Black people in America have no culture, I think that may not have been the way you wanted to say it. Maybe we might want to say that Black people in America have a hybridized culture, right? Not that it's one culture from Africa that got transplanted here, and that one culture is clear. Because where you're right is we are the amalgamation of many different cultural and tribal groups in Africa. That is absolutely true, right? So we definitely have culture here. But what is true is it's not one example of one culture coming from Africa. So there's not a cultural continuity that was unbroken. That is absolutely true.
Yeah, I cited in that conversation, I said Haitians couldn't build. And I said, you know, Africa stopped building. Why? When the Yoruba spoke only one language, led by Oduduwa, which is their leader. When the Abome people spoke only one language. When the Wida spoke one. Ashanti spoke only one language, one God. They were able to build that chieftaincy to a very powerful level.
You don't bring colonization and what the Europeans have done and the Portuguese before them and the Spaniards have done in terms of stripping people of all of the things and forcing all of what you talked about, the one language and the one culture, Christmas and all of that. You don't think that that's a source, and you don't find it, you don't think it was insulting?
In my other videos, I explained that when people have a language, you see all the G8 countries, one of the things that is common among them, one language, and they try hard to keep it that way. I said in my videos that tribes like the Ashanti, which is common, and you went to Ghana. These people were building quick and fast because they had only one language, which gave them one self-determination through their world vision or worldview. When the languages were put together after the scramble, and it became Twi, Ga, Adangbe, Ewe, we couldn't speak to each other. That region ceased to build. And I use the Tower of Babel as an example. I said, there is a time, according to the story, people with one language were building a tower. For me, a vertical structure means development. And God changed the language and they could not continue building.
Right. I said, one missing part here that I think, sir, and that is once all of these different Africans who are, and it is right, are speaking a different language, get on these slave ships. One of the magical things that happens is those Africans in the belly of slave ships begin to piece together their own communication systems, but it's often as much through gestures as through words. So that once the minute we get off those slave ships, we begin building a nation, and people now call that nation America. People now call that nation Haiti. People now call that nation Brazil. We begin to build, and where you're right is because we do create a system, but the language system is not only a language of words, it's also a language of gestures, right? And that allows us to create not only buildings, but also ideas, concepts, right? As spiritual systems, etc., right? That allow us to make lives and allow us to make a headway into a cultural reality that has kept all of us alive. And one of the things I think that's important to say, we may not want to say that folks here didn't have a culture. What we might want to say is that culture was hybridized. That culture.
Okay, y'all. I feel like we're going around. Are you going to stand by this, Frank Zano? When you go out, you're going to. When the clip is played and a person asks you, do you stand by that? Are you still standing by Black people have no culture? I just want to.
Yes, I will explain.
Okay, all right.
I will give the details.
Then we can't.
So after all of that, still come back to the notion that we have no culture. So in the beginning, when I said I don't think that he would, people who think like him are people that we don't build with, that we don't even try to build with. The contentiousness, that ain't even the right word. The pretentiousness, the talking out of both sides of his neck, the half truths, not knowing all the information, it's aggravating. And then to that be your foundation, and to be adamant about us not having culture, and then to walk it back, then to come back and say, well, everybody don't have no culture. Nobody in the diaspora has culture. It's ignorant to say that a group of people don't have culture. All groups of people everywhere in the world have culture. But it's another example of why Black people around the world, why we always talk about on this channel, Black people around the world, but especially in America, but in this case, on a global scale, it's over for Black folk. It's over for Black folk because we can't get along for nothing. Look at the chat. Look how many people arguing and going back and forth and disrespecting each other in the chat, even though we specifically talked about respecting each other in the chat. But look at it now. Black folk always finding something to fight about. We should be able to disagree respectfully, but I see it's, that's hard to do for a lot of people. That's hard to do, to disagree respectfully. And the white folk just sitting back laughing, they're gonna keep winning. We love to fight. We love to fight. And to me, that's one of the things that make what Frank did a bit disingenuous, because if Frank is as traveled and as knowledgeable as he say he is, then he understands that Black people love to fight. And he would understand that he threw gas on the fire, and you have to be responsible with your words, especially when you put them out in public. Because when he started the Daily Wrap-Up Crew interview, he said that he care about Black people and he want to help make things better. He love his people, but you intentionally throwing gas on the fire because you should understand what you were saying. So, that's it. All people have culture. All groups of people have culture. And so, ain't no sense of going back and forth. So once again, like somebody asked me in my comments, would I have Frank on this channel? Nah, because the conversation not gonna go nowhere. I would come to the conversation with an open mind, but I don't think it would be like that. So with that being said, look, it's been 3 hours. I'm hungry than a mug, and I got to get me something to eat. Look at my arm. I want to get my arm bigger, so I got to eat. Shout out to everybody who came and rocked out with me, whether we agreed or disagreed. In the future, if you can't agree respectfully and as an adult, this may not be the channel for you. Learn how to disagree respectfully. And I'm gonna take Nemesis suggestion and modify this chat so we can get some adults up in here that don't be fighting back and forth. We supposed to be grown. And it's supposed to be him fighting over petty stuff. So that's a microcosm of the macrocosm of why we're still oppressed, because we always find something to fight about. But you know how we do. You know how we do and how we do. Yeah. Black Americans have Black American culture, and that's okay. Just like a Yoruba will have Yoruba culture, and Ashanti will have Ashanti culture. All those things, we have culture. Do our culture look like? They see, yeah, exactly. Black American. I'm hungry than the mud. Don't nobody else throughout the world say that. You're right. That's us. Say a whole bunch of people arguing in the chat aren't FBA or African. Right. There we go. So everybody has culture. I would never speak on somebody else's culture that I don't know about like that. And of course that would throw logs on the fire, and he has to understand that. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. The thing is, nobody disagreed with Frank about the amalgamation of culture. And that's the thing. Frank said that we don't have culture, but he also was saying that he was trying to say that we have an amalgamated culture. If Frank would have came out and said Black people have an amalgamated culture, nobody would have cared. He wouldn't have went viral. We wouldn't even be talking about this. If Frank would have said it's an amalgamated culture, it's a culture that's put pieced together. Now, well, I take that back. I do take that back. I do think some people would have had a firestorm, and I thought about it because I did do a video on the brother Sarah Garvey from London, who said that Black people have an amalgamated culture, and people lost their minds over that. And my argument was it's not just Black American culture that's an amalgamation. It'll be an amalgamated culture of all people who are products of the transatlantic slave trade, especially if you're not on the continent. But even some of those on the continent have the influences of the colonizers. So nobody said that our culture wasn't amalgamated. Nobody said that our culture wasn't a degenerate culture at this point. Nobody said none of those things. But to say we don't have culture is very false and very disingenuous. Much respect to you too, Chuku. Like say, look, we disagree respectfully over here. Much respect to you too. I appreciate you that we disagree, but it wasn't no crazy stuff. So I appreciate that. Let's make sure we doing all that, everybody. Yep. Hey, look. It's all good. As long as at the end of the day, we know it ain't real. Hey, like they did on that episode of Martin, when everybody was arguing, and at the end, they're like, we still playing cards tomorrow, right? Look, it's okay to disagree, but disagree respectfully. Look, if we don't start to love ourselves and work together and be better, who will? Nobody else gives a shit about Black folk in the world. Only Black folk have to be the only ones to give a shit about Black folk in the world. I don't agree with Frank Zanu's worldview and his ideology. I'm a Black American, and we believe that that's part of our worldview, that we should work as one and we should fight the system of white supremacy as one. I do definitely disagree with that. And you're right, our culture is no more degenerate than anybody else's culture at this point in time, but everybody like to point that out, right? So, yes. Because we can look at the continent and see a whole bunch of other degenerate cultures. We can look in the Caribbean. We can look in Central and South America. We can look in the UK. All right? But at the end of the day, Black folk, we know we got stuff to work on, so let's get to work. We know we got stuff on, so let's get to work. With that being said, I love all of you. Thank you to everybody for the super chats. Thank you, RBG Tech, for the $10 super chat. Thank you, Cedric P for the $4.99 super chat. Thank you, Chukwa, for two $4.99 super chats. Thank you, Negrino 4470 for the $4.99. And thank you, Trees Like Flowers, for becoming a member. I appreciate everybody. Hey, I appreciate y'all. So remember who the true enemy is. Remember who our true enemy is, and let's learn to respect each other. It's 6:30 my time. It's time for me to go. I gotta go get my life together. I'll see y'all again live on Tuesday. Remember, tomorrow 1 o'clock a video will be dropping. Monday at 1 o'clock a video will be dropping. Tuesday at 1 o'clock a video will be dropping. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, every day at 1 o'clock a video will be dropping. We go live every Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I love you all. Appreciate y'all, and I catch y'all on the other side. Peace out.